Chapter 396. In just a few minutes, under the call of the Wild Wolf Guardian Group, 10 Level 2 Guardian Groups and 20 Level 1 Guardian Groups were gathered. These Guardian Squads all announced the battle achievements and strength of their Guardian Squads, as well as the allocation after temporarily joining their Guardian Squads, and selected Lone Guardians. Although the newly established Proud Heavens did not have any battle achievements to speak of, the beautiful and handsome men were all young super geniuses. There was no need to shout at all as many Level 1 Lone Guardians like Meng Xiao took the initiative to join. However, no one could enjoy the points treatment of Meng Xiao as an official member. Moreover, they could not join just because they wanted to. Only those who were pleasing to the eye like Chen Hao and the others could join. In a total of more than 10 minutes, the army of 500 people was gathered and met the requirements to eliminate the monsters in Sky Tiger Ancient City. The details of the mission and the information of the participating Guardian groups and members also appeared in everyone's Guardian tokens. Proud Heavens Guardian Group had a total of 7 Level 1 Guardians. There are about 1 million monsters in Sky Tiger Ancient City. Our mission this time is to eliminate all the monsters and seize Sky Tiger Ancient City. The mission time limit is 10 days. Time is tight. Let's go. The Wild Wolf Guardian Group's leader, Hu Bolong, ordered. The army of 500 people quickly walked toward the mission teleportation array area. Through the teleportation array, everyone arrived at a relay station in the barren theater of operations that was closest to Sky Tiger Ancient City. The relay station was a place for cultivators to rest and resupply in the barren theater of operations. It had a powerful protective barrier. In the relay station, there were large shops that bought all kinds of monster materials and shops that sold all kinds of special elixirs and equipment. There were also special palaces for cultivators to cultivate in. After everyone entered the relay station, they did not stop. They directly stepped out of the relay station and flew towards Sky Tiger Ancient City that was hundreds of thousands of miles away. Sky Tiger Ancient City was a deserted ancient city. There would often be a certain number of foreign monsters gathered there. When it reached a certain level, it was time for cultivators to start cleaning up. Otherwise, if it was allowed to develop, it would become the territory of powerful monsters. The number of monsters would increase. At that time, the price to pay to eliminate them would be too high. All Guardian groups, listen to my orders. When a dilapidated ancient city that covered an area of 1,000 miles appeared in front of everyone's eyes, Hu Bolong began to give orders. We will join forces and rush into the ancient city. Then we will start the hunt. Captain Hu, isn't this inappropriate? As soon as Hu Bolong finished speaking, the captain of a second-grade Guardian group frowned and said, "What's wrong? This is a level 3 mission, yet the reward is so high. Naturally, it's not that simple. Nearly 1 million demonic beasts have gathered in the city. If we rush into the city directly, it will definitely be very dangerous. I feel that to be on the safe side, we should spread out and start from the outskirts of the city. Provoke, lure, and kill. That way, it would be safer." That's right. However, if that was the case, how could it be completed in 10 days? The mission information had already stated that the strongest monster here was only at the peak of the late-stage Essence Spirit Realm. Most of them were at the early-stage Essence Spirit Realm. What danger would there be? If we rush in, we might be surrounded, but all we have to do is break through and start hunting. The effect would be greatly improved. That was the only way to complete the hunt of 1 million monsters in just 10 days. Alright, Hu Bolong, do not wish for anyone to raise any more questions. Those who are afraid of death can scram now. Kill them all. Hu Bolong gloomily glanced at the leader of the second-rank Guardian group and said arrogantly, "Chi! Chi!" Following Hu Bolong's words, the 500 cultivators immediately transformed into streams of light and charged towards the ancient city. The monstrous aura of foreign beasts filled the entire city. As soon as the crowd unleashed their auras, terrifying beastly roars could be heard coming from the city, as countless beasts soared into the sky. Boom! Boom! The wild wolf protectors took the lead and led the group. They were like a steel torrent that broke through the dense monsters blocking their path and continued approaching the city. These monsters were only at the lowest level of the primordial spirit realm. Even though they did not fear death, they were still unable to stop the group from advancing. In just over 10 minutes, they rushed into the dilapidated city. Every time a monster was killed, its inner core would be absorbed by the hunter. Although the hunting efficiency was reduced, it was obviously impossible for them to give up. An essence soul realm monster's inner core was rather valuable. Even the materials from the bodies of these monsters were not cheap. However, it would take too much time to gather the materials, so it could only be wasted. Countless monsters also gathered towards the group from all directions. As the monsters' huge bodies moved, the entire city trembled. Spread out quickly. If you need help, remember to send a message. The wild wolf protectors have a clear price. We don't cheat anyone. You should have seen it. Hu Bolong said loudly. Although they were in a cooperative relationship, it was impossible to get the other party to provide unconditional help. Under normal circumstances, anyone or the protectors could ask for help when they were in danger, but they would have to pay a price. Be careful. Chen Hao said to the members of Ao Tian through telepathy. This included Meng Xiao and the other 6 temporary members. We will go straight into the depths of the city. If you can't take it, you can retreat behind us. Chen Hao's soul perception, which was far superior to others, allowed him to clearly sense the distribution of monsters in Sky Tiger Ancient City. It was his first time doing a mission, and it was also his first time being a leader. Naturally, he was a little excited. Let's go. Chen Hao glanced at the sisters and said in a deep voice. After saying that, he took the lead and rushed into the depths of the city. Hiss. Hiss. The sisters, First King, and the others were also nearly 1,000 feet away from Chen Hao, keeping abreast of him. Among the 7 temporary members, only Meng Xiao followed without hesitation. The other 6 were weaker and didn't have much courage. They chose to follow behind the group. Puff! Puff! Amidst the dense monster attacks, Chen Hao's attacks were clean and neat, but not violent. The sisters, First King, Zhang Rongrong and his wife also displayed amazing combat strength. On the surface, they seemed to be stronger than Chen Hao. In particular, Meng Xiao, who was dressed in black and had taken off her bamboo hat, was surrounded by a natural aura of a superior. Amidst the dense siege of the demon beasts, she seemed to be taking a leisurely stroll. Every attack she launched seemed to be at her fingertips, but the damage she caused was extremely terrifying. No demon beast could withstand even one of her attacks. The other 6 cultivators behind Chen Hao and the others were in a good mood when they saw the terrifying combat strength displayed by Chen Hao and the others. As the saying goes, under the shade of a big tree, they only needed to hunt the lower-level monsters. As long as they successfully completed the task, they would be able to obtain higher points. Leader, your guess is really right, of course. These guys are all proud and arrogant, but they don't have a brain. With an army of millions of monsters, even we don't dare to go straight in. Just wait for them to ask for help. Save one person, 200,000 high-grade primordial crystal stones each time. Hee hee. Cough, cough, isn't the leader too ruthless? We have already made the price very clear. These guys are not to be offended. Don't forget, there is also a condition that is adjusted according to the individual situation. First King, Bailey Liancheng, Jing Tiangang, and especially Meng Xiao, who joined them temporarily, are all the top geniuses of the top families in Songyuan City. More than 200,000. That Chen Hao can become their leader, naturally he has his own strengths. As for the others, any one of them is a super genius. We don't want to offend such people. Anyway, we won't have any interactions in the future. The price is set in advance, so it's not like we are cheating them. Maintain the formation, don't waste your strength, and take turns to rest. 10 days, I want to see how long they can last. When Qin Hao and the others chose to charge into the depths of the city, the 20 or so Wild Wolf Guard members who had surrounded the city and were also charging into the depths of the city paid attention to Qin Hao and the others. There was a hint of disdain and pride in their eyes as they communicated with each other through voice transmissions. The 10 members of the Proud Heaven Guardian group, as well as Meng Shiyao who joined them with a purpose, were all paying attention to the others. No one was willing to let the others steal the limelight, so the speed of hunting was more awesome than the other. But these guys were not fools. Everyone kept their bottom line. While hunting, they were crazily recovering themselves. The first king had a tall and mighty figure. He held a 3-zhang long machete in his hand. His moves were wide and domineering, but every slash did not waste any energy. He always paid the smallest price to kill the monsters. Jing Tiangang appeared and disappeared unpredictably. His attacks were incomparably sharp. Bailey Lianqing's attacks were like a gentle breeze and drizzle. They looked extremely gentle, but the crazed monsters strangely fell down in front of him. Zhang Rongrong and Tan Hui, who were wearing red robes, vividly displayed the advantages of being Dao partners. When the two of them worked together, their hunting speed was much faster. Moreover, they attacked and defended together, so the consumption of energy was very small. Gao Dazhuang and Bai Xiaomei, this pair of top-quality husband and wife, were even more powerful. But no matter how you looked at it, there was a problem with their IQ. Because their hunting speed was too fast, on the surface, it looked like they really didn't hold back. Qin Hao was hunting while paying attention to everyone's situation. Only the sisters he was most familiar with, as well as Meng Shiyao, who had temporarily joined the Proud Heaven Guardian group, surprised him a little. The sisters' battle strength and tacit cooperation were simply amazing. Even compared to the top-quality husband and wife team, Gao Dazhuang and Bai Xiaomei's speed was not inferior. But the two of them were obviously holding back a lot. And Meng Shiyao gave Qin Hao a feeling of transcendence. The monsters in front of her were like 3 little children. They couldn't even force her to use 30% of her strength. However, Qin Hao was only a little surprised. This level of battle was not the slightest threat to Qin Hao. Compared to the monster tide in Heavenly Mist City, it was not worth mentioning. What's more, his strength had increased greatly. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 397. It's just so. Xiaomei will definitely be first this time, hee, of course. We've only revealed 40% of our strength. Our ability as husband and wife isn't as simple as they think. Zhuang, you're the best, hee. Gao Dazhuang and Bai Xiaomei looked at everyone's situation and secretly communicated with each other proudly. This temporary leader is abnormal in all aspects, but how can he compare to me in terms of combat experience and endurance? Although he's holding back a lot, his hunting speed is not even 2/3 of mine. Jing Tiangang thought proudly. In short, although Qin Hao's performance was not bad, in their eyes, it was still inferior to them. However, the sisters had no doubts about Qin Hao. They believed that in the end, Qin Hao would shock everyone. Because they had seen Qin Hao's madness in the beast tide. A person who was seriously injured to the point of death, but could still persevere in the beast tide, what kind of amazing perseverance and endurance would he have? At least, the sisters couldn't imagine it. Moreover, they knew how terrifying Qin Hao's real combat strength was. Similarly, Meng Shiyao occasionally looked at Qin Hao with a trace of surprise in her eyes. Qin Hao's performance was ordinary in the eyes of everyone, but in her eyes, it was more relaxed than herself. This was the problem of vision. Only when one's own level reached the same level as Qin Hao, could they see the clues. After half an hour, everyone's speed slowed down because of the consumption of their essence, qi, and spirit. The 6 temporary members behind them had no choice but to huddle together. 2 of them rested, 4 of them fought, and took turns to recover. It was only at this time that the crowd, who had more or less suffered some minor injuries and consumption of energy, were surprised to find that Qin Hao was no different from before. There was not even a trace of blood on his clothes. His essence, qi, and spirit were still in full condition. His handsome, angular face did not have the slightest change. His movements were light and easy. Every time he used his sword, it was clean and efficient, harvesting monster cores. Level 3 missions aren't challenging at all. I need to quickly raise the level of the Guardian group. Otherwise, the only thing that can be honed is endurance. Chen Hao thought to himself after sensing everyone's condition. 2 hours later, the group arrived in front of a barren but well-preserved huge palace. Leader, let's occupy this palace and use it as our base. The few of us can't hold on for much longer. Faced with the endless horde of fearless demonic beasts, the 6 disciples who had joined at the last minute had already started taking turns to rest. However, at this moment, they were still too exhausted to continue fighting. One of them took the lead and suggested, Leader, let's occupy this palace as our base. The few of us can't hold on any longer, that's right, guild leader. We'll be fighting for many days. If we use this place as our base and rest properly, our battle results will definitely be higher. Another person said. Hearing their conversation, First King and the others also looked at Chen Hao. Although Chen Hao was the temporary leader, it was only because of their agreement. At this moment, the real decision was still in the hands of Chen Hao. Of course, the First King and the others agreed with the two of them. Although they could still hold on for 4 hours with their strength, it was necessary to choose a base in advance. No. If you can't hold on any longer, follow behind me. It's necessary to have a base, but not now. The demonic beasts' levels are too low. They're not challenging at all. Let's go deeper. Chen Hao glanced at the group and said in a deep voice. After that, he said, also, First King, Jing Tiangang, Beili Liancheng, Zhang Rongrong, Tan Hui, Gao Dezhuang, Bai Xiaomei, Leng Ninghuan, Leng Ninghuan, Leng Ninghuan, Leng Ninghu, all of you, maintain your current formation. Without my permission, all of you are not allowed to join forces. The demonic beasts' levels are too low. The only thing that can be honed is their tenacity. Don't just focus on the effect. When we're doing the mission, the first thing we have to consider is how to improve ourselves and not compare the results. That's short-sighted. Appropriately limit your own abilities in certain areas and hone your own shortcomings in certain areas. That's the most important thing. Tisk, temporary leader. Do you really think you're the leader? That makes sense. Who's afraid of who? All right. First King and the others responded. However, the answers that entered Chen Hao's ears were a mess. Although they felt that Chen Hao's words made sense, they were not convinced by Chen Hao's education style of preaching. Of course, Chen Hao did not want them to be convinced. As long as they knew what he meant, it was enough. Sure enough, although they were not convinced, there was a huge change in the battle that followed. Other than Gao Dezhuang and Bai Xiaomei, the couple, everyone's state of mind did not compare the speed of the demonic beasts. The other 6 people quickly approached Chen Hao's back to seek shelter. There was no other way. They really could not hold on any longer. They were surprised by the strength of Chen Hao and the others. However, they were a little uneasy. They were worried that the arrogance of Chen Hao and the others would cause them to pay with their lives. However, at this point, there was no way out. After 4 hours, even First King and the others were panting. It was obvious that they had used up a lot of energy. After 6 hours, the surrounding demonic beasts had become middle-stage incarnation realm. The demonic beasts' attacks had also become stronger. Beili Liancheng was sweating profusely. His whole body was covered in blood. It was obvious that he had reached his limit. His attack speed, reaction, and spirit were obviously much weaker. However, the pride in his heart made him unwilling to be the first to admit defeat. First King's huge body was also in a situation where he was unable to cope with the attacks. However, Jing Tiangang, who recovered at an astonishing speed, was better than the other two. The Leng sisters and the husband and wife team had already started to take turns as the main attacker. Their performance was better than the three commanders without an army. Meng Xiao, the girl who made first king and the other two willingly admit defeat, although she had not reached her limit, her empress arrogant face was also dripping with sweat. It was precisely because of this that the way everyone looked at Qin Hao had imperceptibly changed a little. After 2 hours, Qin Hao had already shouldered the responsibility of protecting the 6 temporary members. Although he only occasionally helped the 6 to deal with situations that they could not deal with, there was no doubt that those situations would consume a lot of energy. However, after 6 hours, Qin Hao's face had become colder. There was not even a trace of sweat on his face. What was even more shocking was that there was not even a trace of blood on his body. What did this mean? It meant that not only was Qin Hao not injured, even the blood of the demonic beasts that burst out when he killed them was blocked outside of his body. It had to be said that this was a waste of energy to act tough. But now, even though they knew that Qin Hao was acting tough, Jing Tiangang and the others had no choice but to accept it. Fuck. Lion, how long can you last? I can last for at most an hour. Bailey Lianqing glanced at Jing Tiangang and First King. He chose First King and transmitted his voice. It could not be helped. Jing Tiangang's endurance was obviously stronger than First King's. It was not easy to trick him. Therefore, choosing First King who was in a better condition than him had a higher chance of success. As long as First King was the first to choose a base to rest, he would be able to save his face. I don't know. Don't bother me. First King was the first to come in contact with Qin Hao. Compared to Bailey Lianqing and Jing Tiangang, he trusted Qin Hao more. Of course, the main reason was that he was from the Flaming Lion clan. Ordinary beast blood flowed in his body. His instincts were much stronger than humans. Therefore, at this moment, he was completely immersed in the battle training. How could he have the time to care about Bailey Lianqing? Cough cough. If this goes on, someone will die. I can last for 2 hours at most. Looking at you, you can last for at most 15 minutes before you die. You have to cherish your life, Lion, get lost. You're the one who has 15 minutes, right? Don't drag me down with you. Hearing Bailey Lianqing's words, how could First King not know what this guy meant? Fuck. I want to compete with you. Bailey Lianqing was angered by First King's words. After he finished speaking, he quickly immersed himself in the battle. Gather towards me and form a battle formation. Finally, when everyone, including Meng Xiao, was injured, Bailey Lianqing, First King, Jing Tiangang and the others were covered in blood and seemed to have entered a state of madness, Qin Hao knew that he could not continue to fight. In his heart, he admired these guys' ruthlessness. It was obvious that they had exceeded their limits. However, none of them admitted defeat. They would rather be injured than cry out. Therefore, at this moment, Qin Hao could only give the order. Otherwise, if this were to continue, it was likely that someone would kick the bucket. Ah. Someone can't do it. That's good, that's good. Even though I'm completely fine. Bailey Lianqing heard Qin Hao's command, and it was as if he had heard heavenly music. He used all of his strength to quickly approach Qin Hao, and his mouth boasted shamelessly. You're the first to die. What are you bragging about? First King relaxed and quickly approached Qin Hao. At the same time, he said to Bailey Lianqing with disdain. What do you mean bragging? It's just the truth. Really? Since it's like this, you can continue to fight outside the battle formation. First King, Jing Tiangang, Zhang Rongrong, Tan Hui, Leng Ninghuan, Leng Ninghuan, Leng Ninghuan, Leng Ningyu, the 6 of you first adjust yourselves. Qin Hao stared at Bailey Lianqing and ordered without any hesitation, continue to go deeper. Cough cough. Leader, I don't want to be injured too badly. I'll adjust myself first. Whoosh. Bailey Lianqing touched his fat face. His face was covered in blood. He shrunk his neck and rolled like a tortoise. Only then did he manage to avoid the monster's attack. He entered the battle formation without any face. He panted heavily and stuffed a large amount of healing pills into his mouth. Chapter 398. Miss Meng, Gao Dezhuang, by Xiao Mei, you guys guard the left and right sides. I'll be in charge of the front. The rest of you will take turns. Let's go. Chen Hao ignored Bailey Liancheng and ordered. The 6 of them had been following behind Chen Hao for a long time. Compared to Bailey Liancheng and the others, they were in a better situation. They could form a small battle formation with Chen Hao, Meng Xiao, and Gao Dezhuang. Moreover, after leaving the safety of the 6 of them to Meng Xiao, Gao Dezhuang, and Bai Xiaomei, Chen Hao's pressure was reduced by half. He was fully focused on charging forward. This made everyone's speed much faster than when they were alone. Bailey Liancheng, First King, and the sisters were under the protection of the battle formation. They were advancing with the battle formation while recovering their strength. After a few minutes, an intact palace appeared in front of everyone's eyes once again. In everyone's eyes, this palace was undoubtedly the best place to set up a base. However, Chen Hao's words shattered everyone's fantasies. Continue to go deeper. First King, you guys switch with the 6 of them every once in a while. When there's danger, take the initiative. When there's no other way, shrink the battle formation. Chen Hao said coldly as he hunted madly. His not-so-tall figure had become a tireless machine in everyone's eyes. Moreover, he was even more ferocious than before. Every slash of his sword could reap the life of a monster. After hearing Chen Hao's words, Gao Dezhuang and Bai Xiaomei opened their mouths to speak. However, they held themselves back. Even Meng Xiao took a deep breath at this moment. Obviously, they did not expect Chen Hao to be so crazy. The Wild Wolf Guardian group, who had been paying attention to Chen Hao and the others, were so shocked that their eyeballs almost fell out. Even they did not expect Chen Hao and the others to be so powerful. They were a 3rd-grade Guardian group, and their overall realm was much higher than Chen Hao and the others. Moreover, they had rich mission experience. However, they were overshadowed by Chen Hao and the others. Not only were they not as fast as Chen Hao and the others when it came to hunting and advancing, they could not even last as long as they did. This was even after they had formed a battle formation early in the morning. 6 hours later, Chen Hao and the others had already disappeared from their sight. However, the leader of Wild Wolf Guards, Hu Bolong, activated the spirit communication mirror that only a commander could possess and established a connection with Chen Hao. He would occasionally check on the situation of Chen Hao and the others, and the more he observed, the more shocked he became. Especially Chen Hao, Meng Xiao, and Gao Dezhuang, this pair of Dao companions. Although their combat strength was not strong, and was even much weaker compared to them, the 4 of them seemed to have an inexhaustible supply of true qi, and did not rest for even a moment. Too strong, this group of guys is indeed a collection of monsters. If this goes on, I'm afraid our record will not be as high as theirs. Meng Xiao is one of the leading figures of Songyuan City. It's understandable that she has such abnormal physical strength. That pair of Dao companions who make people want to vomit are obviously cultivating a kind of strange cultivation method that allows them to persist until now. But that guy called Chen Hao is too exaggerated. Yes, this kid is really not simple. It's been more than 3 months. You see, not only has his attacks not weakened, but they have become stronger and stronger. What's amazing is that he hasn't suffered a single injury. Mother, is he still human? Is he stronger than Meng Xiao? How is that possible? He is only strong in endurance and the use of strength. In a real decisive battle, he can't be Meng Xiao's opponent. When Meng Xiao was in the early stage of Essence Soul, she had the strength to challenge the late stage of Essence Soul. Now she has stepped into the middle stage of Essence Soul. Except for you, leader, none of us are her opponent. One of the late stage Essence Soul experts said. In fact, what he wanted to say was that even the leader, Hu Bolong, was not Meng Xiao's opponent. It's just that he didn't dare to say it because of Hu Bolong's face. It's hard to say, this guy, the more I look at him, the more dangerous he is. Think about it, among the first king, Bailey Liancheng, Jing Tiangang, and the others, which one of them is not a monstrous super genius? But he can actually become the leader. What does this mean? This guy is definitely not simple. Look at his current appearance. Where does it look like he has experienced more than 6 hours of battle? If I'm not wrong, his combat strength is not worse than Meng Xiao. Another person said. It seems that we can't make money from them. This group of guys is too abnormal. Work harder for me, if they surpass us, it will be too shameful. Hu Bolong said loudly. At this point, they did not even dare to think about using despicable means to flirt with a beauty. In fact, when Meng Xiao joined Proud Heaven, they had already given up on the idea. Now, they did not even dare to think about it. Puff puff puff. 10 hours later, everyone, including Chen Hao, could no longer relax. Late-stage primordial spirit realm monsters began to appear around them. Moreover, there were about 10 of them at a time. Their attacks were so powerful that it was unbearable to look at. Their injuries could no longer be described as light injuries. Even Chen Hao vomited blood several times, and his body was covered in wounds of various sizes. Since he was leading the charge, the attacks he received were far more powerful than the others. However, what made everyone numb was that Chen Hao did not give the order to stop advancing, nor did he have the slightest intention of choosing a base. Although Gao Dezhuang and Bai Xiaomei were extremely reluctant, they could not hold on for an hour and hid in the battle formation to recover. Meng Xiao, who was publicly acknowledged as the strongest in terms of combat strength, had also reluctantly admitted defeat more than 10 minutes ago. Of the 17 people in the team, only Chen Hao had persevered until now. Moreover, he did not have the slightest intention of resting. Chen Hao was challenging everyone's limits, and at the same time, he was also challenging his own limits. The reason why he was doing this was naturally to increase the strength of all the members of Proud Heaven. Since he had formed Proud Heaven with everyone, he had acknowledged the existence of all his brothers and sisters. Of course, Chen Hao also had the mentality of intimidating everyone. These people were arrogant and unruly in their bones. If he wanted to establish his prestige, he had to rely on his true strength to completely convince them. Otherwise, Proud Heaven would forever be a sheet of loose sand. It would be impossible for it to truly become strong. In such a situation, if it had been Chen Hao in his previous life, he would have suppressed them with iron and blood. Not convinced? If not, he would beat them until they were convinced. However, Chen Hao now did not want subordinates who feared and obeyed his orders. Instead, he wanted brothers and sisters who could communicate and treat each other peacefully. Therefore, his methods were much gentler. Not only did he have to use his own strength to convince these guys, he also had to convince them with his virtue. Of course, Chen Hao's virtue was not the kind of virtue that appeared to be sanctimonious. Can't you all go on? After another hour, Chen Hao looked at the shrinking battle formation that had almost completely gathered behind him. His face was already covered in blood. He could no longer care about acting tough and asked aloud. I can't, I really can't. You can still speak, why can't you? A man can't say no. Yes, a woman can't either. Continue to go deeper. From now on, I won't help you solve your crisis. If I die, I will burn more paper money with you. No way. Hearing Chen Hao's words, Bailey Liancheng and the rest were instantly terrified. Not helping. What did that mean? At this point, almost all the monsters around them were in the late stage of the primordial soul realm. Any big move would put their lives in danger. Moreover, even if they took turns to rest, they could not recover at all. Almost everyone was on the verge of collapse. Brother Hao. We really can't hold on any longer. Leng Ninglu said as she endured the pain all over her body. It's okay, Lulu. If you and Huan die, I will burn twice the amount of paper money with you. I guarantee that you will all be rich after you die. Chen Hao said mercilessly, if you want to live, you have to use your own strength. Do you see that tall palace in front? Our base will be there. Whether you can hold on until it is up to you. Fuck. That's at least 10 miles, even the first king felt a little hopeless when he saw the palace. You 7 temporary members are not included in this list. Just do what you can. If you can't hold on, come to my side. As for the rest of you, don't talk nonsense. A person's potential is limitless. It depends on whether you can break through your own limits. Among these low-level monsters, this is the only thing that can be trained. If you can't even hold on until this, how are you qualified to fight with me for the position of the leader? You don't even deserve to be a member of Proud Heaven. If you don't die, then follow me to the end. Chen Hao didn't even look at the crowd as he madly swung his sword and spoke arrogantly. The disdain and provocation in his words were absolutely undisguised. However, the first king and the others were obviously provoked by Chen Hao's words. They understood what Chen Hao meant. Each of them took a deep breath and did not say anything else. The more dangerous the situation is, the more you have to stay calm. Sometimes, you have to pay the appropriate price. As long as it's not fatal, it's right. Under such circumstances, the most important thing is to consume the least amount of energy. Even if you have to use your physical body to exchange for it. There is still a lot of room for improvement. I don't expect you to be as close as Huan and Lei. I don't expect you to be as close as Gao Dezhuang and Bai Xiaomei. But at the very least, you can't have too many flaws. This is the potential that we must have when we are fighting as a team. Bailey Liancheng, if you had rushed up to block the attack for Jing Tiangang, you would only have suffered a little more injury. Jing Tiangang would not have used such an energy-consuming move at this time. It would be a loss for you, but for the team, it would be to preserve their strength. A team needs individual dedication and the spirit of sacrifice. I don't expect you to sacrifice yourselves, but you must do your dedication. No one knew how they persevered until they reached the tall palace. However, Chen Hao's words rang in their ears from time to time, making them feel frightened. First, Chen Hao's words made them feel frightened. There was no doubt that every word was guidance for them. Secondly, Chen Hao had not rested since the beginning. Furthermore, at this moment, he was facing an attack that was even more terrifying than theirs. Although he was leading the charge, Chen Hao, who only showed his back to them, seemed to have seen every single one of their movements clearly. He knew their situation like the back of his palm. Thirdly, everyone was able to discern that the injuries Chen Hao suffered at this moment were absolutely more severe than theirs. His every move was still without the slightest disorder, and he was always able to use the smallest price in exchange for the greatest effect. He quickly recovered his strength as he spoke. At the same time, he communicated with the mysterious existence and began to refine the spiritual spring to replenish himself. How is it? Very soon, this mission will be upgraded to level 4. But by then, we will have already left. The only things that can be hunted for you are these mutated puppets. Keek. Do you want to take this opportunity to recover? You won't have a chance. The monster said arrogantly. At the same time, there was a loud bang and its huge body immediately emitted a terrifying pressure. It looked at Chen Hao and the others as if they were prey. It opened its blood-red mouth and cruelly licked its scarlet tongue. With a sinister smile, it approached Chen Hao and the others. With every step he took, the entire palace shook. Looking at everyone's expressions, it enjoyed this feeling very much. Captain Chen, let's retreat. We can't fight against this monster. Meng Shiyao said with a solemn expression. Boss, let's retreat. The first king and the others also said. Everyone said fearfully as they defended against the demonic beasts outside the door. Now, they were powerless. Even if they retreated, they needed Chen Hao to be the vanguard. And no matter who it was, they all felt the aura of death. The monster's words and the aura it emitted clearly told everyone that it was not a simple monster at the peak of the late essence soul stage. Not only did it have amazing intelligence, but it was also an expert from an extraterrestrial race. The layout of the Sky Tiger ancient city was very likely to be a danger zone specially designed to deal with the guardians. Guard the door. What made everyone's expressions even more embarrassed was that Qin Hao said coldly. At this time, even Meng Xiao frowned slightly. She knew very well that everyone was in such a desperate situation because of Qin Hao's persistence. She was the same as the first king and the others. She did not blame Qin Hao. After all, Qin Hao was also trying to train everyone. But in this situation, what was the point of persisting? That would be courting death. If they escaped now, at least a few of them could survive. If they did not escape, they would only be wiped out. Whether to escape or not, the decision was actually completely entrusted to Qin Hao. Because if they escaped, Qin Hao was the main force. Only then would they have a chance to rush out. Qi. Just when everyone wanted to persuade him, Qin Hao moved. Qin Hao, who was already heavily injured, actually erupted with a peerlessly fierce and powerful aura at this moment. True essence that was dense and pure to the point it caused everyone to feel inconceivable surged out from Qin Hao's body. At the same time, a peerlessly fierce sword insight that was filled with a destructive aura rose up. In the huge palace, the energy of heaven and earth set off gusts of wind in an instant. Ah! How is this possible? The first king and the others, Meng Xiao, and the 6 temporary members who were a little confused, all stared in horror. No one thought that Qin Hao could still burst out with such a terrifying aura under such circumstances. This aura, including Meng Xiao, was terrifying. This was definitely not because of their poor state. Even if they were in their peak state, they would be equally surprised. The legendary destruction sword Dao. Pure true essence beyond everyone's understanding. There was also a disdainful look that made people feel a terrifying pressure. Only the sisters weren't too shocked, because they were the only ones who knew Qin Hao's true strength. At this moment, they were temporarily resting. Their beautiful eyes were filled with a strange light as they stared at Qin Hao's figure that wasn't very tall, but had an indomitable spirit. Their hearts trembled. Huh! The monster, who was laughing sinisterly, suddenly stopped laughing as if its neck had been strangled. A look of surprise flashed in its scarlet eyes as it stared at Qin Hao, whose aura had suddenly become countless times stronger and made it feel a sense of danger. Qin Hao's aura was only at the peak of the early stage primordial soul realm. But at this moment, there was no trace of it at all. Having hunted countless guardian geniuses, it could judge from Qin Hao's aura that Qin Hao definitely had the strength to fight against an expert at the peak of the late-stage primordial soul realm. You are so strong. Good, good. This is interesting. After this king devours you, this king will definitely become stronger. Go to hell. Roar. Boom. The monster with the face of a human and the body of a beast could not be bothered to enjoy the pleasure of threatening a human. With a loud roar, its huge body rushed toward Qin Hao like a mountain. Mysterious and strange runes gushed out from its body. Burn, my life. What shocked Meng Xiao and the others, and what worried the sisters was that at this moment, Qin Hao's clear and cold voice had actually spoken such a sentence. With the appearance of this sentence, Qin Hao's aura once again soared to a terrifying level. The first king and the others all felt their blood boiling. Their little universe had completely exploded because of Qin Hao's short sentence. In their hearts, everyone clearly understood what these words meant. Burning of life. Although they did not know what kind of secret technique this was, they knew that it was a secret technique that used one's lifespan as the price. It was no wonder that Qin Hao, who was also severely injured, could suddenly become so strong. What did he do? For everyone's lives. For his brothers and sisters, for them, he did not hesitate to burn his life. Everyone was so touched that they were in a mess. Even Gao Dezhuang and Bai Xiaomei, who were a pair of supreme-grade Dao companions, were stunned as they stared at Qin Hao. Qi. Boom. Chi. Boom, 1 sword, 2 swords, 3 swords, 4 swords, 5 swords, 6 swords. Anyone could see that Chen Hao's incomparably sharp sword light, which seemed to condense all the energy in his body into a single point, was definitely Chen Hao's strongest move. But at this moment, Chen Hao actually used his ultimate move consecutively, 6 consecutive sword strikes. No one could do this. At least, in everyone's knowledge, no one could unleash such a powerful secret technique consecutively and at such a fast speed. Seeing Chen Hao's energy being sucked out crazily, not to mention the sisters, Tan Hui, Bai Xiaomei, Meng Xiao, and the other women, even the first king, Jing Tiangang, Gao Dazhuang, and the other men had tears in their eyes. Boss, at this moment, everyone fell into madness and sluggishness. While desperately blocking the monsters that wanted to rush into the palace, they stared at Chen Hao. They did not know how badly Chen Hao would be injured after this move. They did not even know if Chen Hao could survive. However, at this moment, no one had any thoughts of competing with Chen Hao for the position of boss. They also acknowledged Chen Hao's position in their hearts. Why? Because everyone knew that if Chen Hao abandoned them and fled by himself at this moment, then he would definitely be able to survive. However, he chose to use the secret technique of burning his life force for everyone. Rumble. The terrifying sword light that contained the destruction sword Dao collided with the monster with a human face and a beast's body. A terrifying explosion almost destroyed the huge palace. Roar, accompanied by the monster's fearful and mournful screams, this lasted for a full half a minute. Then, the palace that contained the powerful restriction finally stopped trembling. Brother Hao. The sisters immediately rushed toward Chen Hao, who had collapsed to the ground. Their beautiful little faces were filled with endless worry and tears. They knew that Chen Hao was powerful, but they did not expect Chen Hao to use the secret technique of burning his life force. Boss. The first king and the others also rushed toward Chen Hao. They did not even care about guarding the door. Fortunately, the temporary members and Meng Xiao, who had maintained a trace of rationality, took the lead at this moment and desperately guarded the door. No one reminded the first king and the others because they could not bear to. Chapter 400. Why are you so excited? Guard the door well. I've only burned a few decades of my lifespan. I won't die. When the beautiful sisters rushed to Chen Hao's side, to everyone's surprise, Chen Hao, who seemed to have collapsed and could no longer sense any energy fluctuations, stared at everyone and ordered. Yes. Yes. After a short silence, everyone responded excitedly. Looking at everyone's expressions, Chen Hao's face did not change at all, but he smiled wretchedly in his heart. Burning his lifespan? Not to mention that he did not know this secret technique, even if he did, there was no need to use it. His original intention was to hide his true strength. After all, other than the members of Proud Heaven, there were still 7 temporary members present. However, he did not expect that his words to fool everyone would make them so touched that they became muddle-headed and successfully convinced them with virtue. Chen Hao naturally would not explain. It was not to deceive everyone's feelings. In fact, if he was really in a desperate situation, he would really use the secret technique of burning his lifespan. If that was the only way to save everyone's lives, he would also not hesitate. Because he was the one who forced everyone to this step. Then, as the leader, he had to be responsible for everyone. There was no secret technique of burning his lifespan, but because of Chen Hao, the first king, Jing Tiangang, Bailey Liancheng, and the others all seemed to be burning their lifespan and broke through their limits that were on the verge of collapse. Other than Chen Hao, who entered a deep state of recovery and cultivation, the other 16 people were divided into 3 groups and took turns to resist the tide of monsters outside the door. The killing did not stop for a moment. Chen Hao and the others did not know that when they encountered the peak of the late stage of the primordial soul stage, the leader of the Wild Wolf Guardian group and the others were using the psychic mirror to observe Chen Hao. The power that Chen Hao displayed by burning his lifespan completely shocked the Wild Wolf Guardian group. No one would have thought that Qin Hao was so strong. Even if he used the secret technique of burning his lifespan, it was still too terrifying. In particular, Qin Hao's final words to the sisters, the first king, and the others clearly told them that he had burned his lifespan but had not yet reached the point of death. Hu Bolong was certain that if he were to face that terrifying sword light and the fact that it was a chain attack, he would be blasted into smithereens. Motherfucker, it's best to stay as far away from a fugitive as possible. Don't offend him no matter what. This kid's life aura is only in his early 20s, but he's already at the pinnacle of the early primordial spirit realm. Although a few decades of lifespan is a heavy price for him to pay, it shouldn't be a problem for him to use it a few times. Moreover, as his cultivation increases, his lifespan will also increase. That's right. It was certain that such a monstrous genius would advance to the blessed realm, and he might not even need many years to do so. Those in the blessed realm have a lifespan of 1,000 years. Alright, let's be careful. This mission is obviously a trap set up by the extraterrestrial monsters. There were probably quite a few monsters at the peak of the late stage of the incarnation realm. Otherwise, the monster would not have said that this mission required him to be promoted to level 4. I'm afraid it won't be that easy to complete the mission. It's more important to stay alive. Kill as many as you can. Yes. After a full 6 hours, Qin Hao finally heaved a long sigh of relief. His entire body was full of energy. However, the wounds on his body were still there. This time, he had deliberately blocked the automatic recovery function of the immortal bloodline. Moreover, he had deliberately slowed down the speed at which he refined the primordial crystal stones. However, even with that being the case, to be able to recover in 6 hours, it was still a very abnormal speed for the crowd. Only the two beautiful sisters noticed something. They knew how fast Qin Hao was refining the primordial crystal stones. However, the two beautiful sisters would not say anything. I'll guard the door. All of you, do your best to recover now. After Qin Hao woke up, he did not waste any time and said directly. You alone? Don't worry, I'm almost fully recovered. As Qin Hao spoke, he walked to the door and waved his sword to welcome them. The door, which was 100 feet wide, was immediately enveloped by his terrifying sword essence. Hurry up, when you're almost fully recovered, we'll split into 3 groups. Yes. Seeing Qin Hao's performance, everyone no longer hesitated. One by one, they sat cross-legged and entered a state of full recovery. After half an hour, Beili Liancheng, Jing Tiangang, Gao Dezhuang, Bai Xiaomei, Zhang Rongrong, Tan Hui, the 6 of you will be the first group. Immediately go out of the palace and hunt. When you can't hold on anymore, come back. Still want to go out? Of course. The 17 of us will be divided into 3 groups. One group will rest, one group will guard the door, and one group will go out to gain experience. You guys go first. Cough cough. Okay. Everyone's expression changed slightly, but their eyes shone with a touch of determination as they replied. Immediately, Beili Liancheng and the other 5 rushed out of the palace. Of course, everyone understood Qin Hao's meaning. Obviously, this was another challenge to their limits. Originally, in this base, guarding the door and recovering had already reached the point of maintaining a balance. However, Qin Hao was obviously not satisfied with this kind of meaningless killing. After splitting into 3 groups, the number of people resting and guarding the door decreased. Naturally, the danger increased, but the hunting speed was the same as when there were more people. The pair that stepped out of the palace to hunt would naturally face more dangerous situations. But the overall result would certainly improve a lot. There was no doubt about this. Now, let's split into the next group. Miss Meng, your strength is relatively strong. The 6 of them will be in the same group as you, okay? After the 6 people left, Qin Hao looked at Meng Xiao and asked with a trace of inquiring tone. Meng Xiao's strength was very strong, Qin Hao could feel it. Moreover, The other party was not an official member of Proud Heaven, so he could not give orders like he did to First King and the others. Okay. Meng Xiao slightly frowned, but still said decisively. Now you should focus on recovering. When the first group comes back, it will be time for you to go out. Miss Meng, when the 6 of them can't do it, you can send them back and continue to stay outside. When the time comes to guard the door, the strength of the 6 of them should be enough. Okay. Meng Xiao looked at Chen Hao with a trace of gratitude in her eyes. The trace of dissatisfaction in her heart also disappeared. After all, with her strength, it was a bit of a loss to take 6 people who were much weaker than her. But now, Chen Hao's arrangement had eliminated this point. First King, Huan, Lei, the 4 of us will be the third group. When you are almost done, come and replace me for a while. The 4 of us need to wait for the second group to come back and the first group to guard the door, then we can go out. Yes. In less than 2 hours, Bailey Liancheng, Jing Tiangang, and the other 5 people, one by one, returned to the palace with all their strength. Their recovery time was short, and they had not recovered to their peak state. It was quite rare for them to be able to persist for almost 2 hours in the middle and late primordial spirit realm monster group. After the 6 people came back, they directly entered the palace and began to recover with all their strength. Meng Xiao, who had almost fully recovered, rushed out of the palace under the leadership of Meng Xiao. Chen Hao, First King, and the sisters took turns to guard the door, letting Bailey Liancheng and the other 5 people recover with all their strength. 2 hours later, Meng Xiao returned to the palace with 6 temporary members with weaker strength. I'll go with you. Meng Xiao did not step into the palace, but at the door, hunting monsters while looking at Chen Hao and asking. At this moment, it was Bailey Liancheng and the other 5 people's turn to guard the door. And it was time for Chen Hao and the other 3 to go out to hunt. Okay. You estimate your own situation and come back in advance when you can't hold on, Chen Hao said. Okay. The 3 groups cycled and killed crazily. Time passed day by day. Meng Xiao's strength was indeed not comparable to First King and the others. After all, Meng Xiao was already an expert at the middle stage of the primordial spirit realm, while First King and the others were only at the early stage of the primordial spirit realm. In terms of realm, they were inferior. But the most abnormal was still Chen Hao. Although First King and the sisters were in the same group, in fact, in the beginning, he guarded the door with the 3 of them. Later, they took turns to guard the door twice, and he only came back once. It was almost completely the responsibility of guarding the door to First King and the sisters. However, with the strength of First King and the sisters, even if they took turns to guard the door, it was enough. No one had any objection to Chen Hao's decision. After all, Chen Hao's desperate hunting outside had a huge effect on improving the team's record. Moreover, during several opportunities, Chen Hao deliberately invited Meng Xiao, and the 2 of them stepped out in peak condition. Out of curiosity, Bailey Liancheng and the others opened the psychic mirror that only Proud Heaven's members had to observe why Chen Hao invited Meng Xiao. They were shocked when they saw the 2 of them walking into the huge palace and provoking the commander monsters at the peak of the late stage of the Essence Soul realm. Of course, Chen Hao and Meng Xiao teamed up, so they naturally would not use life ignition. It was dangerous, but they succeeded in killing the powerful monsters every time. As time passed, when the number of monsters became fewer and fewer, their base was adjusted several times and kept approaching the core. The Wild Wolf Guardian group, who originally felt that there was no hope of completing the mission, carefully wanted to move towards the core, but found that they did not even encounter a commander monster at the peak of the late stage of the Essence Soul realm. This made their confidence soar. On the 8th day, they no longer needed to take turns to guard, because the number of monsters had become very small, and they needed to snatch monsters. The so-called snatch monsters inevitably led to conflicts between guardian groups, but the strength of Proud Heaven's guardian group was so strong that even the Wild Wolf Guardian group did not dare to compete with them. Who else would dare? However, the other guardian groups did not have the authority of the Wild Wolf Guardian Group's leader, so they did not know who was the most abnormal in Proud Heaven's Guardian Group. They were afraid of Meng Xiao, one of the leading figures of the younger generation in Songyuan City, as well as First King, Jing Tiangang, and Bailey Liancheng. Of course, the aura of the other members of Proud Heaven also made them afraid. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 401. On the 9th day, there were no longer any traces of monsters in the entire Sky Tiger Ancient City. Hu Bolong received the mission notification and finally announced the completion of the Sky Tiger Ancient City mission. 500 people came, but only 400 or so returned. Dozens of guardians died in the mission. Compared to ordinary missions, this death rate was quite high. Of course, if not for Chen Hao and the others, more people would have died, and it would have been impossible to complete the mission. Boss, do you think our results will be surpassed by theirs? If we're overtaken, we'll lose a lot of face. A cultivator in the Wild Wolf Guardian Group said as the 400 people returned to Songyuan City from the relay station. We have more than 20 people, and they only have 17. 6 of them are very weak. Their overall results will definitely not surpass ours. Hu Bolong said in a low voice. Although he said so, he did not have any confidence in his heart. Moreover, in terms of individual results, he was destined to lose face. As the leader of a third-grade guardian group, his realm and strength should undoubtedly obtain the highest individual results. However, he already knew that he had no hope when he encountered a monster like Chen Hao. Now, the only thing he could fantasize about was the team's overall results. In that case, he could still save some face. However, when everyone handed in their recording devices and Guardian Group tokens to the old man at the Alliance's mission window, a huge sign beside the window showed the results of the mission and the distribution of the rewards. Not only did Hu Bolong and the others widen their eyes, but even the old man at the window was staring. How is this possible? Oh my God! Isn't this too exaggerated? Looking at the results on the huge sign, everyone rubbed their eyes in disbelief, thinking that they had seen wrongly. After confirming that there was no mistake, they all exclaimed in surprise. No one had thought that Ao Tian would be so strong. Ao Tian, who was only a first-grade guardian group, was actually at the top of the list in terms of overall results. Moreover, his points were twice that of the second-ranked Wild Wolf Guardian Group. What did this mean? One had to know that the Wild Wolf Guardian Group was the commander of this mission and was also the only third-grade guardian group. They had an absolute advantage in terms of realm and numbers. However, their results were only half of Ao Tian's. It was not that the Wild Wolf Guardian Group was too weak, but that Ao Tian's Guardian Group was too strong. Even more shocking was the fact that Captain Chen Hao's personal battle record actually accounted for a fifth of Proud Heaven's total battle record. Next was the powerful Meng Xiao. Both of them were much stronger than the others. 30 monsters at the peak of the late-stage Essence Soul Realm and at the commander level of the Outer Realm. A total of 1.2 million monsters at the Essence Soul Realm and above. This mission had already reached the 4th level. Moreover, it was a danger zone specially created by the extraterrestrial races. This is a mistake on the part of our scouts. Fortunately, Proud Heaven's guardians had displayed astonishing strength. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Cough cough. Wait a moment. Old man will report this to the president. He should give you some extra rewards. After the old man finished speaking, he disappeared from the room, leaving everyone looking at each other in dismay. Soon after, everyone's gazes turned towards Chen Hao and the others. Captain Chen, many thanks to Proud Heaven. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid we wouldn't have been able to return. Yes, thank you very much. He didn't expect this mission to be so dangerous. 30 monsters at the peak of the late-stage Essence Soul Realm, and all of them at the commander level. Captain Chen, is Proud Heaven recruiting? I want to join. For a moment, everyone was calling out to Qin Hao and the other members of Proud Heaven. There were even a few lone guardians who wanted to join Proud Heaven. However, Qin Hao didn't need to say anything. Bailey Liancheng and the others refused without hesitation. Even the 6 temporary members who had joined Proud Heaven for this mission weren't qualified. This was the principle that Qin Hao, the first king, and the others had to abide by when they established Proud Heaven. Only true elites were qualified to join Proud Heaven. Moreover, the prerequisite was that their character was guaranteed. Meng Xiao was definitely qualified. However, Meng Xiao didn't take the initiative to become a member of Proud Heaven. She joined Proud Heaven temporarily because she wanted to understand Proud Heaven's situation. In this mission, although Qin Hao and the others had shown great strength, and Qin Hao's performance had even shocked her, when she first joined, she said that she would only join temporarily. If she took the initiative to join Proud Heaven at this time, how embarrassing would that be? She believed that with her performance, Qin Hao would invite her. Even if Qin Hao didn't invite her, as long as Bailey Liancheng, Jing Tiangang, and the others showed some interest and said something like when they first met, she would push the boat with the current and become a member of Proud Heaven. After all, among the 30 Lord-level monsters at the peak of the late-stage Essence Soul Realm, except for the first one that Qin Hao had burned his life, the rest were killed by her and Qin Hao together. Moreover, their efforts were no less than that of Qin Hao's. In terms of real combat strength, she was even stronger than Qin Hao. At least, she thought so. The only difference was her recovery speed and endurance, which were far inferior to Qin Hao's. Otherwise, her personal record wouldn't be so much lower than Qin Hao's. The old man soon returned and announced the result. The original reward of 100,000 points was directly increased to 200,000 points. The experience of 1 million upper-grade primordial crystal stones was increased to 2 million. After the distribution according to the ratio of the Guardian Group's record, the Proud Heaven Guardian Group alone got 40,312 points and 403,120 upper-grade primordial crystal stones. The Wild Wolf Guardian Group only got about half of the Proud Heaven's points, and the rest was divided among the 29 Guardian Groups. The difference was not very big. On average, they couldn't be compared with Proud Heaven's points. However, the members of the Guardian Group didn't have any dissatisfaction or jealousy. After all, the points were distributed completely according to the record. Moreover, because the points were doubled, their harvest was much higher than expected. I didn't expect our harvest to be so big. Very good. Now, according to the ratio of our individual record, Miss Meng will enjoy the treatment of an official member. This is what we agreed on. As for the 6 of you, you can only get 70% of the points according to the ratio of your record. The deducted 30% will be equally distributed to the official members of Proud Heaven. This is also what we agreed on. Is there any problem? Qin Hao said after leading everyone to a place with fewer people. No problem. The 6 of them said. Although the record of the 6 of them was less than 1/3 of the record of First King, Gao Dazhuang, and the others. But they still had 900 points, and after deducting 30%, they still had more than 600 points. They were only level 1 guardians, but they could get 100 or 200 points more than the average. What was there to be dissatisfied with? The 6 of them had never even considered joining Proud Heaven. Everything they had experienced so far surpassed anything they could ever have imagined. Considering that they were in the company of a freak like Proud Heaven, there was no way they could possibly keep up with him. If it weren't for the fact that Qin Hao had taken care of them, they would have long since died. They didn't want to take any risks. After all, they were friends with Qin Hao and the others. Once they encountered danger beyond what Qin Hao and the others could bear, they would definitely be abandoned. At that time, they wouldn't even know how they died. Soon, Qin Hao finished distributing everyone's points through the commander's token. Qin Hao alone got more than 4,500 points and more than 45,000 high-grade primordial crystal stones. Meng Xiao got 1/5 less than Qin Hao. And First King, Gao Dazhuang, and the others got 1/5 less than Meng Xiao. Seeing that Chen Hao, First King, and the others didn't invite her to join Proud Heaven, Meng Xiao couldn't help but ask, Commander Chen, what are you going to do next? Look at them. I'm a temporary commander, but my points are temporarily in the lead. They can do whatever they want. I'm going to the cultivation hall to cultivate for a while. Why, are you interested in joining us? Chen Hao looked at Meng Xiao and asked with a slight smile. In the past few days of cooperation, Chen Hao had seen Meng Xiao's strength. If this woman joined Proud Heaven, it would naturally be a good thing. Moreover, Chen Hao could also feel that this woman's character was not bad. Hearing Chen Hao's words, although the sisters' expressions didn't change, they couldn't help but get closer to Chen Hao. Showing an intimate appearance. That appearance was obviously aimed at Meng Xiao. Although the sisters were confident that their appearance, figure, and so on were better than Meng Xiao, but in terms of cultivation talent and combat power, they seemed to be inferior to Meng Xiao. Of course, the main reason was that Meng Xiao's cultivation level was higher than the two of them at the moment. After they were promoted to the middle stage of the Essence Spirit Realm, it was hard to say. At least the two of them together would not be worse than Meng Xiao. Meng Xiao looked at the two women with a slight smile and said, okay. But, I have a condition. Condition? Chen Hao was slightly taken aback, and then the corners of his mouth slightly hooked up and said, sorry, although Miss Meng is excellent, it's not to the extent that you want to make conditions with us. Don't get me wrong. My condition is not to be a commander, nor to ask for special treatment. First King, Jing Tiangang, and Bailey Lianqing should know about me and Huyan Aobua. I just hope that after I join Proud Heaven, you won't recruit Huyan Aobua anymore. I'm worried that he will also choose you. Meng Xiao said. Oh. Who is Huyan Aobua? Chen Hao asked. Awesome person. He is on par with Miss Meng, known as, cough cough, in fact, he is the leader of our Songyuan city's younger generation. But, compared to you, boss, he is a bit worse. That guy doesn't need Miss Meng to say anything, we can't let him join us. Bailey Lianqing said. Now, it was very easy to call him boss, and the word temporary had long been thrown aside. Yes. We can't let him join us. Jing Tiangang said, that guy's eyes are always on top of his head, and his nose is always in the sky. More importantly, he is dissolute by nature, mother. In Songyuan City, if not 100, there are dozens of beautiful sisters who were harmed by that guy, cough cough. Jing Tiangang seemed to have thought of something, and awkwardly coughed, and didn't continue. In fact, all the youths in Songyuan City didn't understand. Meng Xiao was a first-class beauty, and more importantly, her talent, realm, and so on were all high and mighty existences. Any normal man would have the desire to conquer this goddess of Songyuan City. But Huyan Aobua didn't have any feelings for Meng Xiao. Similarly, Huyan Aobua was the prince charming in the hearts of countless people, but Meng Xiao also didn't have any feelings for Huyan Aobua. As for Jing Tiangang saying that Huyan Aobua was dissolute by nature, it was out of jealousy in his heart. It was just that there were too many girls throwing themselves at Huyan Aobua. Chapter 402. Bailey Lianqing, Jing Tiangang, I treated you two as my brothers, but you actually dare to speak ill of me behind my back. Who have I harmed? Right at this moment, to everyone's surprise, a dissatisfied voice sounded out. Then, a youth in black clothes and a bamboo hat appeared in front of everyone at a seemingly slow speed, but his speed was surprisingly fast. When she saw this figure, Meng Xiao frowned, but her expression did not show any surprise. Obviously, she already knew of this young man's existence and could confirm his identity. It was also because of this that Meng Xiao proposed a condition to Chen Hao. The reason was simple, because Meng Xiao knew that this guy was already paying attention to Proud Heaven. Last time when she temporarily joined Proud Heaven, she had already noticed this guy. And this time when she returned and saw him hiding in the crowd, she was even more certain of his intentions. I, Huyan Aobua, am handsome, elegant, and charming. Everyone loves me. Flowers bloom when they see me. But this is innate, what does it have to do with me? I admit that if I wanted to harm someone, I could indeed harm a lot of people. But I've always been a clean and honest person. I'm neither a romantic nor a pervert. I'm already 24 years old, but I'm still a virgin. I still have my first kiss. I'm a classic example of a pure and good man who's never been touched by a single leaf. Who have I harmed? As Huyen Aobo spoke, he took off his bamboo hat and gently stroked his flowing bangs. He had a somewhat wanton and unrestrained feeling as he stared at the embarrassed Jing Tiangang and Bailey Liancheng. This guy was obviously asking for a beating, but he said it in a serious manner, making people feel as if it was really the case. Moreover, this guy's appearance indeed gave people a kind of stunning feeling. His skin was sparkling and snow-white, his eyebrows were sharp and his eyes were sharp. There was a scar on his left cheek. Not only did it not look ugly, but it also added a bit of manliness. The scar was obviously a new injury. But it was wrapped in a strange energy, hindering its recovery. Meng Xiao, you're too petty. Are you afraid of losing, or afraid of falling in love with me? Before you started the mission, I found that Proud Heaven was more suitable for me. You were one step ahead of me. I'm a man, so I let you go first. At this time, you still won't let me join. Based on what? Based on you being more voluptuous than me. Cough cough. Seeing that Meng Xiao was about to flip out, Huyen Aobo once again changed his target, taking a step forward to Chen Hao's side. With a flattering smile on his face, he bowed his head and said, "Boss, I've come to report." "How dare you call me boss?" "Boss, you can't take it. This guy talks like a lunatic and thinks he's infallible. He even specially made a scar on his face to look cool. What's the use of such a show-off?" Zhang Rongrong, who originally didn't express his opinion, said at this time. "That's right. What do you mean by handsome and elegant? Compared to my Zhuang Zhuang, he's like a clown. Boss Chen, why don't you take Xiao Meng? She's more reliable." Bai Xiaomei said with a disgusted expression. However, unlike Zhang Rongrong and the other outsiders, First King, Jing Tiangang, Bailey Liancheng, and Meng Xiao were all surprised when they saw Huyen Aobo's appearance. Zhang Rongrong and the others didn't know, but they clearly knew that Huyen Aobo was absolutely high up in the entire Songyuan city's younger generation. Not only was his personal strength second to none, but he was also a typical devil incarnate. First King wanted to say something but hesitated. In fact, he didn't approve of Huyen Aobo joining Ao Tian. The reason wasn't because Huyen Aobo wasn't good enough, but because he was too troublesome. First, he never submitted to anyone. Second, he had countless enemies. No matter which guardian group received him, he would be a hot potato, but at this moment, he actually directly called Chen Hao boss. Not only did he call him boss, but he also bowed his head and looked like he was sincerely convinced. Was this still the devil incarnate? "You're Huyen Aobo." Chen Hao ignored everyone's words and stared at Huyen Aobo. Cough cough. Yes, boss. I'm Huyen Aobo. The leader of Songyuan City's younger generation, there's no one else. Meng Xiao isn't my opponent at all, I'm just letting her go. A good man doesn't fight with a woman. Boss, drink. What made everyone speechless was that at this time, Huyen Aobo actually took out a wine cup, filled it to the brim with respect and flattery, and handed it over to Chen Hao with both hands. Chen Hao took it in an ostentatious manner, drank a mouthful, and then said, "Is that so? Why do I feel like Miss Meng is letting you go?" "This. Since boss thinks so, then this little brother must have made a mistake. This little brother is not as good as Meng Xiao. She's not very voluptuous, but she's still a beauty. If boss likes her, then go ahead and take her. Although I have an engagement with her, it's all done by those old bastards. It has nothing to do with us. After 3 years, I'll definitely cancel." No, sister-in-law, I admit defeat. You can cancel the engagement now and throw yourself into boss's embrace. Pfft. Chen Hao spat out a mouthful of wine onto Huyan Aobu's face. He even stretched out his hand and slapped Huyan Aobu's head, saying, "What nonsense are you talking about?" But what made everyone surprised was that Huyan Aobu didn't even frown, nor did he dodge, saying, "Ah. So boss doesn't like her. I already said that boss's appetite shouldn't be that bad. It's a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. Then I'll defeat her in 3 years and divorce her." Bastard! How could Meng Xiao endure such humiliation? With a curse, she kicked towards Huyan Aobu. But what was different from Chen Hao was that her kick was blocked by Huyan Aobu's protective aura. Everyone was stunned by the scene in front of them. What kind of play was this? "Boss, I'm your little brother. You asked me to report, I'm already here. I don't object to boss wanting her, but you must want me. I'm boss's man, I'm boss's ghost. 3 years ago, your little brother was as lonely as snow. Today, 3 years later, I met boss, this bright light. If you don't want me, I can only die to show my sincerity." Huyan Aobu continued. Chen Hao almost spat out another mouthful of wine. When everyone heard Huyan Aobu's words, they also realized something. It seemed that this guy and Chen Hao had already crossed paths. Moreover, he had already been taught to be obedient by Chen Hao. "First King, what do you think?" Chen Hao looked at Meng Xiao's appearance, turned his head and asked the First King. "This. I think it should be up to Miss Meng, N. Indeed, it should be up to Miss Meng. Don't, boss, can you bear to watch me die? However, our AO Tian is currently lacking people. Including Miss Meng, there are only 11 people. If Huyan Ao Bo is Miss Meng's mortal enemy, then he can't join AO Tian. No matter how outstanding he is, he can't join AO Tian. Even if he's already my little brother. But, it's obvious that your grudge is a forced marriage. This is a small matter. AO Tian needs elites. Since you all want to join AO Tian, you must think about the development of AO Tian, you must put aside personal grievances, especially this kind of small grievances. So, I hope that both of you will join AO Tian." Chen Hao ignored Huyan Aobu, stared at Meng Xiao and said, "Miss Meng, what do you think?" Meng Xiao frowned and pondered for a moment, then said, "Let him join. But unless AO Tian is in a life and death situation, otherwise, you can't let me cooperate with him. Only a ghost would want to cooperate with you." Huyan Aobu said. "This is no problem." Chen Hao said, "Take out the tokens." At the place where the Guardian Group was registered, Chen Hao officially incorporated the two into AO Tian's organization. Although Jing Tiangang, Bailey Liancheng and others were still a little unhappy, but what's done can't be undone, so they didn't say anything. After all, Huyan Aobu's strength was there. A welcome banquet was naturally unavoidable. The banquet was still at the Sea Sky Tavern. "Xiao, you also arranged for us to sit at the same place as last time. This time, we don't need to give a tip, right? This time, let's go to the top floor, I'll treat everyone." When everyone arrived at the entrance of the Sea Sky Tavern, Chen Hao suddenly said to Meng Xiao. Meng Xiao was slightly stunned, and immediately her heart was incomparably surprised, but her face was full of embarrassment and shyness. In any case, she would never have thought that Chen Hao would see through her identity. One must know that at that time, she was wearing a high-grade spiritual treasure, concealing appearance-changing chain. Even a Fortune Realm expert would not be able to detect it, so how could Chen Hao detect it? This made her very embarrassed. And the shyness was because of the way Chen Hao addressed her, but after a moment, she was speechless. "Brothers and sisters, this time we return triumphantly from the mission, the harvest is quite big. Miss Meng and Huyan Aobu, two great talents, have joined AO Tian. Today I am very happy. So, this wine, I'll treat. At the top floor, you can drink whatever you want, eat whatever you want. You can pay for it, No need for public funds. Chen Hao said in an incomparably forthright manner. After drinking, under Jing Tiangang and Bailey Lianqing's interrogation, everyone finally knew how Huyan Aobo got to know Chen Hao, and how he was taught a lesson. It turned out that this guy had followed them when they were doing the mission. Just like Meng Xiao, he had taken a fancy to Ao Tian, but after Meng Xiao joined first, he could not put down his face and was prepared to play a trick. First, he wanted to tease Meng Xiao, and second, he wanted to see what kind of boss Ao Tian Duke had chosen. He did not expect that Chen Hao would see through him, and he almost lost his life. Of course, if it was not for the fact that he did not have any bad intentions, he would have died a long time ago. The scar on his face was a masterpiece left behind by Chen Hao. Furthermore, Chen Hao had inadvertently activated the Undying Sword Dao, causing his wound to not be able to heal even after a few days, and he was always surrounded by the Undying Sword intent. This kind of situation was when he was in his peak state. Chen Hao was fighting alone outside for a few hours, and the sisters and First King could not hold on any longer and had returned to the base to recover. What if Chen Hao was in his peak state? When the banquet was over, Chen Hao once again hugged the drunk sisters and said goodbye to everyone. The sisters' disguise was very good. Although Chen Hao had the high-grade spirit treasure, Heavenly Eye, and could see through Meng Xiao's disguise and discover Huyan Aobo following them, he could not tell that the sisters were pretending to be drunk, so, when this guy put the sisters on the bed, he even fiercely touched them, almost reaching into their clothes. It could be considered as a reward for carrying them back. Anyway, they did not know, right? Chapter 403. Qi. Qi. The brilliant sword light contained the terrifying power of lightning and the aura of destruction. It killed the powerful monsters one after another. Cheers erupted from the crowd. This was a gigantic palace. The great hall of 1,000 feet in circumference was filled with young disciples, both male and female. There were more than 10,000 of them. Every one of them had an extremely powerful aura. At this moment, everyone was staring blankly at the huge light screen in the hall. If Chen Hao saw this scene, he would definitely think that he had returned to Earth. Because this scene was no different from a movie theater. The only difference was that the displays on the screen were magical equipment and techniques, not advanced technology. At this moment, the scene displayed on the screen was of a young girl fighting in a dense horde of monsters. This young girl was wearing a blue dress and a black veil. Although her face couldn't be seen clearly, her graceful and exquisite figure caused the hearts of countless youths to sway. Junior sister Chen Shui is actually so strong, yeah, he's too strong. I remember that junior sister Chen Shui was only at the early stage Essence Soul realm when she first came over. Her realm had yet to stabilize. In the short span of a year, he has already advanced to half-step to manifestation. Based on his momentum, he will definitely be able to trigger the heavenly punishment and step into the manifestation realm in less than 3 years. 3 years? Only you can say that. Haven't you heard about junior sister Chen Shui's situation? What's the situation? 100 years of pregnancy? What do you think? Ah. Was this for real? She can't be. Shoo, lower your voice. I heard it from a personal disciple of immortal sovereign Yun Wei. But it shouldn't be fake. The hall master had already disappeared for more than 100 years. This time, she returned with junior sister Chen Shui. Could it be fake? Furthermore, if not for that situation, no matter how talented she was, it was impossible for her to advance so quickly in half a year. The primordial spirit realm was not the same as the Jindan, Yuanying, or incarnation realm. Furthermore, it was said that junior sister Chen Shui had truly fused with all of them by chance. Otherwise, how could eldest senior brother and second senior brother possibly fight because of junior sister Chen Shui? That's true. I wonder who junior sister Chen Shui will choose. Choose who? You're really an idiot. Have you gone stupid from cultivating? Could it be that you don't know that junior sister Chen Shui already has someone she likes? It can't be. Is there someone more outstanding than eldest senior brother and second senior brother? Definitely not. However, being outstanding doesn't mean that you'll be able to gain junior sister Qin Shue's favor. Who is it? I don't know. In any case, junior sister Qin Shue had broken through this round in order to leave Cold Plum Hall. If nothing unexpected happened, she would be going to find the person she loved. The palace master had already agreed. It was said that this was the knot in junior sister Qin Shue's heart when she stepped into Blessed Realm. From the looks of it, there's a chance of success. Too slow, too slow. It had been a year, and he didn't know what level he had advanced to. This time, I must pass. No one can stop me. While everyone was shocked by Qin Shue's performance, Qin Shue, who was immersed in the battle, clenched her teeth and firmly said in her heart. Ever since she was captured by her mother, she had been cultivating in Limitless Immortal Palace's Cold Plum Hall. Besides following the disciples in the hall and occasionally participating in the beast tide in a certain city or the war with the alien races, he had no freedom at all. The cultivation environment was indeed countless times better. He could enter and exit all kinds of cultivation treasures as he pleased. But Qin Shue felt like a bird in a cage, without any freedom. Especially when she had to face some annoying fellows. Other than cultivation, there was nothing else she could do. Once she stopped, her mind would wander off into the distance, thinking about what Qin Hao was doing, what level of cultivation he had reached, who he had met. And so on and so forth. The more she thought about it, the more she felt that she shouldn't have returned. Especially when she left without saying goodbye. How worried would Qin Hao be? Would he blame her? Seeing that the 3-year time limit for Xia Yuyu, Helian Wuzi, and Tan Tai Lian was about to arrive, how could she endure it? She knew from Qin Hao that the 3 people who were taken away by Apotheosis Yunwei after the Eastern Continent sect exchange had agreed with Qin Hao to meet once every 3 years. Now, there were only a few months left. No matter what, she had to succeed before the 3-year time limit. She had to return to the Eastern Continent to meet Qin Hao. This girl is crazy, Apotheosis Immortal Han Mei, who was the nameless old man and Qin Shue's mother, sat in front of the screen. At this moment, she had already taken off her bamboo hat. Her skin was as smooth as snow, and her appearance was 60% similar to Qin Shue's. However, her snow-white hair and the vicissitudes of life in her eyes showed that she was old. At this moment, she stared blankly at Qin Shue on the screen as she thought to herself. This was the test for Cold Plum Hall's disciples. Basically, only disciples who had stepped into the creation realm had a chance of passing the test. However, Qin Shue, who had just advanced to the half-step creation realm, stubbornly requested to pass the test. If she succeeded, even she would not be able to restrict Qin Shue's freedom. This was the rule of Wuji Immortal Palace. Forget it. Let her be. Apotheosis Immortal Han Mei said helplessly when she saw the last monster fall in front of Qin Shue. Amazing. Hall Master, Qin Shue's sword technique is probably not as powerful as the ultimate technique of our Wuji Immortal Palace. It can actually kill an early-stage creation realm monster. It's really incredible. What's the name of this sword technique? An old man sitting beside Apotheosis Immortal Han Mei looked at Apotheosis Immortal Han Mei and asked. This is her own encounter, I don't know. Apotheosis Immortal Han Mei said with a smile. Did I pass? I passed. I passed. Qin Shue, who was covered in blood and heavily injured, hunted in a frenzy. When the last and most powerful beginner stage Blessed Realm monster fell in front of her, a hint of surprise appeared on her beautiful face hidden behind the veil, and she said, "Thank you for your help, Master." Perhaps it was because she was too tired, or because her injuries were too serious, or perhaps it was because she was mentally relaxed. After she finished speaking, she fell to the ground. Master, I want to pass the test too. Me too. At this moment, 2 disciples stood up and said to an old man sitting beside Apotheosis Immortal Han Mei. The aura of these 2 people was obviously at the peak of the half-step manifestation realm. One was tall and powerful, while the other was handsome. These two people were the chief disciple and the second disciple of Cold Plum Hall. Apotheosis Immortal Han Mei had no feelings for these two young people. She had left for more than 100 years, and when she came back again, the entire Cold Plum Hall had become the deputy hall master's world. Now, she was just a hall master who was just a figurehead. And these two people were the deputy hall master's proud disciples. Good, you can't be defeated by junior sister. Yes. In Songyuan City, only level 3 guardians could enter the 3rd floor of the cultivation hall. In the gravity field cultivation area. Chi. In the 1200 times gravity field area, a figure was sweating profusely as he kept making simple sword movements. Sometimes he stabbed, sometimes he spun, and sometimes he slashed. Every sword movement didn't contain any true yuan, but just by relying on the strength of his body, it produced a sound that pierced through the air. What was even more surprising was that this young man didn't contain any true yuan when he swung his sword, and there was no true yuan fluctuation on his body. Obviously, he was completely relying on the strength of his body to withstand the 1200 times gravity field pressure. Boss is too strong, that's how idols are trained. Tisk tsk. Brothers, look at his eyes. Doesn't he look like a cat in heat? If boss fainted, I'm afraid he would be raped, right? Of course, sister-in-law Huan would have to allow it. Scram. Huyen Albua, if I become sister-in-law, I'll see how you die. Tsk. Save it. If boss was interested in you, he would have taken you long ago. Why would he wait until now? But then again. Could it be that boss was sick in the head? Huan Lele is obviously sister-in-law level, but boss has never touched her before. Huyen Albua, do you really want to die? The Ling sisters were furious. Not only were they embarrassed, but they also felt wronged. It had been a year. It had been almost a year. They couldn't remember how many times they had been drunk. They had been given plenty of opportunities, but that guy would always touch them and be done with it. He didn't take any further action. Could it be that they were so different from the 4 godmothers he mentioned? Cough cough. I'm just worried for you guys. As the saying goes, a man chasing a woman is like a mountain, a woman chasing a man is like a piece of paper. You guys obviously like boss, so you did it. Boss is righteous, so shouldn't he be responsible? Moreover, he's obviously interested in you guys too. Yes, Huan Lele, it's not that I want to lecture you, but you should learn from me. Look at our Zhuang, isn't he obedient to me now? Once boss finishes his cultivation, we'll leave Songyuan City and begin our journey. When the time comes, we'll have a big drink. And, you guys should help us. We'll work together to get boss drunk. When the time comes, the two of you can take care of boss. Of course, if you don't have any objections, you can also bring Xiao along. Bai Xiaomei spoke in an extremely sinister manner, as if she was an experienced person. The sisters and Meng Xiao wished they could find a hole to hide in. Especially Meng Xiao. It had to be said that in this 1 year, Meng Xiao was fascinated by Qin Hao. Her eyes and heart were filled with Qin Hao's figure. But he had the sisters. How could she have the nerve to snatch them away? At this moment, Huyen Ao Bo that bastard's words were already enough, but Bai Xiaomei's words were so direct to the Leng sisters that she couldn't find a way out of this embarrassing situation. However, she was possessed and forced herself not to retort because she really wanted to know the Leng sisters' attitude. After all, in her heart, no matter what, she was still the third party. Ah. Right at this moment, Lin Hao suddenly let out a cry of surprise, his eyes staring straight at a figure that was walking towards them. Lin Hao, when Qin Hao established his position as boss, became the 13th member of Ao Tian. As the leader of the younger generation in Emerald Smoke City, his aptitude was a little lacking compared to the others, but the gap wasn't big. In addition, he had some relationship with Qin Hao, so the others didn't have any objections to him joining. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 404. What a beautiful woman, I like her. Beauty, how are you? Everyone followed Lin Hao's gaze. Huyan Aobua, Jing Tiangang, and Bailey Lianqing's eyes lit up as they widened their eyes. Huyan Aobua and Jing Tiangang were still fine as they exclaimed in admiration. As for Bailey Lianqing, he looked as if he had lost his soul as he spoke while drooling. Big. Big. Big sister-in-law. Lin Hao, who was also dumbstruck, only reacted after hearing everyone's words. He stuttered as he called out. Wrong. You should call her sixth sister-in-law. Don't fight with me over her. Bailey Lianqing stared unblinkingly at the beauty who was approaching them. He wiped off the drool on his mouth as he spoke with a red face. Scram. She's obviously fifth sister-in-law. Don't waste your energy with your pig head. Jing Tiangang said. You two idiots, don't throw boss's face. Second brother hasn't even made a move yet, when did you get your turn? Huyan Aobua flicked his fringe as he spoke in a rather showy manner. Cough cough, second brother, fifth brother, sixth brother. Do you want to die? Lin Hao's figure flashed as he stood in front of the three of them. His back was facing the rapidly approaching beauty as he looked at the three of them. He blinked his eyes as he spoke in a low voice. Oh. Little eight, you've got guts, eh? Go to the side and stay there. Bang! Huyan Aobua, Jing Tiangang, and Bai Lianqing instantly joined forces. Like an eagle catching a chick, they directly grabbed Lin Hao and threw him backwards. Under the gravitational field that was more than 1,000 times stronger, these guys did not use the protective light of the token. They were completely relying on their own cultivation to resist the pressure of the gravitational field. This directly caused Lin Hao to come into close contact with the ground. His handsome face was almost flattened. He grimaced in pain and almost fainted. Wasn't this like a dog biting Lu Dongbin? Lin Hao, who originally wanted to stop these three people's brainless actions, simply shut his mouth. What a strong physical body. Gao Dezhuang, who was nestled in Bai Xiaomei's bosom like a disgusting little bird, said with a strange light in his eyes as he stared at the approaching figure. Bai Xiaomei sensed the newcomer's aura and said, he's in a gravity field that's 1,300 times stronger than normal, and he's not even using his quintessential origin. He's also so fast and strong. Perhaps only boss can compare to him. Even if we reach half-step into blessed realm, we won't be able to do that. So beautiful. The sisters and Meng Xiao were all first-class beauties, and were full of confidence in their own figures and appearances, but at this moment, when they saw the person who came, they couldn't help but secretly praise in their hearts. Although they didn't feel ashamed of their inferiority, but the appearance, figure, temperament, and especially the temperament of the person who came, were absolutely superior to them. Sister, I feel a little uneasy, me too. Lin Hao seemed to have called out, sister-in-law. Lengning Huan and Lengning Lu stared at the newcomer as they transmitted their voices. The others didn't pay attention to Lin Hao's stuttering, sister-in-law, but the two of them couldn't ignore it, because they knew that they had 4 godmothers. Moreover, Lin Hao and Qin Hao were quite close, and had known each other even earlier than they had known Qin Hao. Hello beautiful. I'm the second brother of Proud Heaven's guardian team, Huyan Aobua. I'm 25 years old, and I'm still single. People call me the pure and innocent young man. Do you want to join Proud Heaven? Although our boss is strict with his recruitment, with me, Huyan Aobua, I can guarantee that you'll become a member of Proud Heaven. Don't you know your name? Where are you from? Beautiful, don't pay attention to this show-off. If you want to join Proud Heaven, Jing Tiangang, just say a word, and that's enough. Although I'm the 5th brother, boss trusts me the most, beautiful, Bailey Lianqing, am honest and clean. I'll talk to boss and guarantee that you'll become one of Proud Heaven's main forces. The three of them stood in a row, blocking the path of the intruder. Moreover, the true essence fluctuations of the three of them condensed into an invisible chi wall, blocking the intruder's line of sight and probing fluctuations. Obviously, although their heads were filled with blood, they still didn't forget their duty of covering for their boss. Moreover, they didn't fight because of each other's provocation. However, all three of them, without exception, had their burning gazes fixed on the beautiful face of the person who had just arrived. Although they were separated by a few feet, such a close distance made the hearts of the three of them sway. Their hearts were jumping with joy. Regardless of whether it was her aura or appearance, wasn't she the most ideal Tao companion in their hearts? The person frowned slightly, glanced at the three of them, and said, "I'm looking for Chin Hao." Cough cough, beautiful, when our boss is cultivating, he won't see anyone. If there's anything you need, just look for us. To tell you the truth, if you're a man, our boss may still see you. But you're a woman, and a beautiful woman at that, our boss will never see you. Huyen Ao Bo said with experience. Yes, there are too many women who want to see our boss. But our boss is already taken, he doesn't fool around. Jing Tian Gang added without hesitation. Hearing the two's words, the person's slightly frowned eyebrows relaxed, and a faint smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. But, beautiful, look over there. That pair of sisters is our sister-in-law, and the other one might also be our sister-in-law. To tell you the truth, although our boss is famous, he's a henpecked husband, so, if there's anything you need, just tell us. The person's relaxed expression was ruined by Bailey Lian Cheng's words. 3. In just a short year, there were 3 of them, and he was a henpecked husband? How could the person's expression be good? At this moment, the person's gaze was like 2 incomparably sharp swords, looking straight at the Leng sisters and Meng Xiao. The sisters and Meng Xiao were carefully sizing up the person, and separated by 1,000 feet, the 4 pairs of eyes collided. They had encountered this kind of scene many times. Every time a woman came, Huyen Ao Bo and the other 2 would immediately help their boss solve the problem. And in most cases, the sisters and Meng Xiao would become the focus of attention. And basically, every time the person saw the sisters and Meng Xiao, they would obediently retreat. But this time was different. The person's gaze faintly carried a strong sense of examination and hostility. This made Meng Xiao frown slightly, her gaze not giving way. But, the sisters who had already guessed the general situation, after seeing the person's gaze, hurriedly avoided it. Their small faces turned red, and even a little embarrassed. Of course they knew what Huyen Ao Bo and the other 2 were talking about, how could they not be embarrassed? Move aside. Very quickly, the person retracted her gaze, looked at Huyen Ao Bo and the other 2, and said coldly. Beautiful, what do you want? Our boss is cultivating, no one can disturb him. Although I, Huyen Ao Bo, admire your beauty, but... Boom! The newcomer's body suddenly released an incomparably sharp aura, causing Huyen Ao Bo to stop abruptly before he could finish his sentence. Jing Tian Gang and Bailey Lian Qing also did not expect the person to be so fierce. One by one, they violently activated the energy in their body, and in an instant, the expression on their faces became serious, as if they had changed into another person. They no longer had the infatuated look, and coldly stared at the person who came. Huyen Ao Bo took a deep breath and said, Miss, don't tell me you want to fight. This area is very big, and it's all 1,300 times the gravity area. If you want to cultivate, you can choose any place. Our boss will take this area. If you want to find trouble, you are not qualified. Qualified. At this time, Lin Hao did not dare to continue hiding. In any case, the 3 of them had already lost face, so he quickly ran over here and said, Fuck. When the 3 of them heard Lin Hao's words, they immediately raised their noses and stared at Lin Hao, who was rushing over. Sister-in-law, you are Qin Shui's sister-in-law, right? This little brother has seen sister-in-law and boss's elegance before. Lin Hao said loudly as he ran. Huyen Ao Bo, Jing Tian Gang, and Bailey Lian Cheng's expression suddenly changed. Zhang Rongrong, Tan Hui, Gao Dezhuang, Bai Xiaomei, Shi Wang, and Meng Xiao, who just exchanged glances with Qin Shui, were also a little dumbfounded. They looked at each other, and obviously did not know what was going on. They had been with Qin Hao for a year, and although their relationship was not shallow, but because of the Leng sisters, they never mentioned anything about Qin Hao's relationship. Who are you? Qin Shui was wearing a blue dress. Perhaps because of the increase in her cultivation, she had become more beautiful than a year ago. Her eyebrows were slightly wrinkled, and her eyes were like shining swords as she looked at the unfamiliar face of Lin Hao and said, "This little brother is Lin Hao, Emerald Smoke City, Emerald Smoke Chamber of Commerce's young master. Sister-in-law, boss has sealed his divine sense and is cultivating. Second brother, fifth brother, and sixth brother did not know of your arrival, please don't blame them, fuck, little 8, why didn't you say so earlier?" This. Huyan Ao Bo was at a loss. Fuck, flirting with sister-in-law, how could this be? He immediately restrained his aura, rubbed his hands together, and looked at Qin Shui with an embarrassed face and said, "Sister-in-law, this little brother did not know of your arrival. What the three of us said just now was nonsense, please don't take it seriously. Our boss often mentions you in front of us, but unfortunately, we have never had the chance to see sister-in-law's peerless demeanor. To be able to see you today is really a blessing of 3 lifetimes. Sister-in-law, let me introduce you. Aren't you all coming over?" Huyan Ao Bo slapped Lin Hao to the side and shouted at the first king and the others in the distance, fully displaying the demeanor of a second brother. "Sister-in-law, this is the third king, greetings, sister-in-law." The first king's expression was normal, but there was a hint of hesitation on his face as he clasped his fists and said. At this time, if Qin Shui still kept a straight face, it would not be justifiable. Her expression softened and she nodded slightly. "This is the fourth brother, Gao Dezhuang, this is the fourth sister-in-law, Bai Xiaomei." The loser otaku Luo Yun was struck by lightning and his soul entered the body of a descendant of the immortals. He should have been a noble descendant of the immortals, but he became a useless piece of wood in the lower realm. What's even more tragic is that this continent is full of chaos. The 3 great human empires are struggling bitterly, and the flourishing demon race has been divided into 36 countries and 72 territories. What's even more unbelievable is that Kai Wenji has become his mentor, Zhao Fian has become his classmate, and a large number of historical figures have become demon monarchs and demon marshals. This world is not easy to live in. Book number 2532249. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Chapter 405. This is 7th brother Zhang Rongrong, this is 7th sister Tan Hui, cough cough, this is Meng Xiao. Boss has never looked at her, don't worry sister-in-law. What we said just now was bullshit, we deliberately used boss as a shield. You. Meng Xiao was angry and embarrassed, she couldn't wait to trample Huyan Aobo to death, but she forced herself to hold back and nodded at Qin Shui. These two are bosses. Huyan Aobo had already scolded himself for being an idiot, why did he have to introduce them to others? He could kick Meng Xiao away and ignore her, but the sisters were not easy to deal with. Although the relationship between the sisters and the boss was not clear, it was already like a flea on the monk's head. Many times, the ambiguous scenes were still vivid in his mind. How to introduce them? Introducing them as sister-in-law, it was obvious that the boss's inner courtyard was on fire. Introducing them like Meng Xiao would definitely offend the sisters, wouldn't you be in an awkward situation? Sister-in-law, just when Huyan Aobo didn't know how to continue, the sisters blushed and said, "I'm Leng Ning Huan, this is my sister Leng Ning Lu, we are, our grandfather." Everyone heard the sisters say the word grandfather and felt a little strange. Our grandfather and brother Hao are friends. Very close, let us sisters acknowledge brother Hao as our godson, godbrother. Sister-in-law, you're so beautiful. Leng Ning Lu interrupted Leng Ning Huan. Originally when everyone started the introduction, the sisters were already discussing in private what to do. Leng Ninghuan wanted to tell the truth, so as not to cause Chen Shui to be dissatisfied with Chen Hao. But Leng Ninglu was not willing to reveal her identity as a godson. But under Leng Ninghuan's insistence, she compromised. But now when Leng Ninglu saw that Leng Ninghuan was about to say it, she regretted. Chen Hao was also a little embarrassed at this moment. Originally, the words of Huyan Aobo and the other two made Chen Shui's hair stand up in anger. She wanted to annihilate Chen Hao by force. But now, everyone was calling her sister-in-law. Including the three girls, their attitude had undergone a shocking reversal. They were all obedient to her. This made her feel a little embarrassed. She was not the kind of woman who was overbearing and narrow-minded. Although she could still feel that the relationship between the sisters and Chen Hao was not simple, seeing the sisters' obedient and nervous appearance, how could she still be cold? More importantly, even though Chen Shui didn't want to admit it, she more or less felt very proud in her heart. Her little vanity was greatly satisfied. So much so that when Leng Ninglu said, "God sister," and praised her, sister-in-law is so beautiful, her beautiful face had completely softened. You don't have to be so restrained. I'm a very easygoing person. Where is he? Chen Shui wanted to say something, but seeing everyone's expression, she didn't say anything in the end. She directly asked. Sister-in-law, you'll see him when you go over there. Huyan Aobo instantly made an inviting gesture, bowing his head and taking on the role of a waiter. Just call me Chen Shui. I'm not used to this form of address. Although Chen Shui heard it very pleasing to the ear, but thinking that if Chen Hao was present, not to mention her, even Chen Hao would be very embarrassed. One must know that they were brother and sister. Although in the depths of their hearts, it had long surpassed the brother and sister relationship, but if they really wanted to break through this layer of paper, it would feel a little too fast and too sudden. At this point, Chen Shui seemed to have thought of something. Suddenly, she looked at everyone and said, I want to give him a surprise. Can you guys help me? Sister-in-law, call me Chen Shui. Cough cough, this is too disrespectful to sister-in-law. Why don't I call you Miss Chen? Sure. What does Miss Chen need us to do? Boss might need another 2 hours to complete his cultivation. Huyan Aobo said. Just pretend that you don't know that I'm here. You don't have to worry about anything else. Just do what you need to do, is that alright? Chen Shui looked at everyone and said. No problem. Huyan Aobo replied immediately. The others also nodded. Although they did not say it, in their hearts, they did not think much of Chen Shui's so-called surprise. They knew how abnormal Chen Hao's senses were. Not to mention Chen Shui, who was half-stepped to manifestation, even a manifestation realm expert would not be able to hide in front of Chen Hao. What right did Chen Shui have to hide from Chen Hao? That's good. Chen Shui smiled faintly. As soon as she finished speaking, her entire body silently disappeared in front of everyone. There was not a trace of energy fluctuation, as if she had never existed. Huyan Aobo and the others pushed their senses to the limit, but they could not sense Chen Shui's presence. Only a pleasant and faint body fragrance proved that Chen Shui had once existed. Isn't this a little too exaggerated? Including the beautiful sisters, no one was not shocked. They had been with Chen Hao for more than a year, but Chen Hao had never used this kind of concealment skill in front of them. Of course, even if Chen Hao used it, they would not know. At this moment, who would not be shocked when they saw such a miraculous concealment skill? Only their eyeballs did not fall to the ground. He has the god's eye, and I have the mortal dust shield. Even if his carving skill is one level higher than mine, he will not be able to sense me. Chen Shui looked at everyone's shocked expressions and the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. She smiled sweetly and once again revealed her signature, pride. Her body flashed, and she silently walked in the direction Huyan Aobo had mentioned. After a moment, a figure appeared in Chen Shui's eyes at the corner. 1 year, an entire year. This familiar figure was like a ghost. Once Chen Shui relaxed, he would enter her mind and occupy all her thoughts. This made Chen Shui feel the pain of longing. This had never happened in the past. She had met and parted with Chen Hao several times and she had always been able to keep her heart as still as water. However, it was only this parting that made her feel the torment of longing. The main reason was naturally that her relationship with Chen Hao had improved, and she had been greedily treated by Chen Hao many times. Another reason was that she had no choice but to leave without saying goodbye. Looking at Chen Hao who was immersed in his cultivation, Chen Shui resisted the urge to rush over. Her beautiful little face shone with a strange radiance and pride. Yes, it was pride. Although Chen Hao's aura was only at the late stage of the primordial spirit realm, after experiencing several blows, Chen Shui no longer cared about Chen Hao's realm. This was a freak that could be ignored in front of any so-called genius. Moreover, even if Chen Shui wanted to care, she could not. Just by looking at Chen Hao's attacks, she knew that the gap between her and Chen Hao had not shrunk by much even though she was half-stepped to the manifestation realm, quietly looking at Chen Hao who was sweating profusely and clearly enduring great pain as he swung his sword again and again. Chen Shui's beautiful eyes quietly became extremely peaceful. This feeling of steadiness and warmth made her very intoxicated. Other than Chen Hao, no one else could give her this feeling, not even her mother. In the gravity field of 1,300 times, he didn't even use a trace of inner yuan, but his speed and strength have already reached such a level. If he were to remove the restraints and use his inner yuan, how strong would he be? I've always thought that in this year, my solitary sword technique had been cultivated to the extreme and should be on par with him. I didn't expect the gap to be so big. I wonder if he will blame me for leaving without saying goodbye. Staring at Chen Hao's figure, Chen Shui could not help but think of how her mother had forced her to leave without saying goodbye. She had seen Chen Hao frantically searching for her like a madman. Unfortunately, her mother had not allowed her to leave behind a single word. She did not know how long Chen Hao had been searching for her and when he had left, but she could imagine how Chen Hao had felt at that time. What should we do? Sister-in-law's so-called surprise is obviously a surprise check. This is the first time I've seen such a powerful concealment technique. If boss is unable to detect it, Auntie Huan, Auntie Lo, I'm afraid you won't be able to get past this. You've already lived together with boss. Huyan Aobo transmitted his voice to everyone. Stop shouting. What, live together? It's just a palace. We'll just give it up. Leng Ninggle pouted and said. The sisters were also very sad, but their beautiful little faces could not help but reveal a trace of grievance. Before Chen Hao's arrival, although there was nothing between them and Chen Hao, but in the eyes of everyone else, they were definitely sisters-in-law. But now, as soon as the real sister-in-law appeared, these guys only worried about their boss. Why would they care about the sisters' feelings? Cough cough. She is indeed our sister-in-law, but, you sisters have a better relationship with us. Can you give us some accurate information? Is there anything between you and boss? Or rather, do you have the confidence to conquer boss? If you do, then we can discuss a countermeasure. Even if it makes things difficult for boss, we still have to do it. Are you an idiot? Bai Xiaomei heard Huyan Aobo's words and immediately rolled her eyes. Xiao aside, Huan Huan and Lei to boss to them, how is it normal? You are too weak. If this is the case, how can you fight for your own happiness? Isn't it normal for a man to have 3 wives and 4 concubines? Xiaomei, are you serious? Hearing Bai Xiaomei's words, Gao Dazhuang's eyes lit up as he asked excitedly. What do you mean? 3 wives and 4 concubines? Do you want to die? Bai Xiaomei pulled Gao Dazhuang's ear and said fiercely. Cough cough. I'm just asking. I'm satisfied as long as I have you, Xiaomei, humph. Bai Xiaomei snorted and looked at the sisters. Sister-in-law may be excellent, but you are not bad either. When you saw her just now, you seemed to be a head shorter. How can you do that? It's fine for us to call her sister-in-law, but if you think of boss as your boss, how can you call her sister-in-law? At most, you can call her sister. Chapter 406. That makes sense. How about this? Didn't sister-in-law just say that? She wants us to pretend that we don't know anything, then we'll pretend that we don't know anything. Hee, that's enough. Besides, even if boss finds out, he can't punish us, right? Huyen Aobo said. No. Leng Ninghuan was the first to object. You don't know the real relationship between Brother Hao and us. Let's just tell Brother Hao that sister-in-law is here. Sister, we won't tell him. Aobo is right. We're just following sister-in-law's instructions. Listen to me this time. Anyway, we're not wrong. Leng Ninghuan said stubbornly. Although the two sisters' hearts were connected, and their appearances and personalities were almost the same, there were still differences. All right. Leng Ninghuan looked at everyone's eyes and finally nodded. Inverted slash. Chi. Boom. Chen Hao suddenly soared into the air. The elemental sword in his hand chopped down violently from a high altitude. There was a sharp piercing sound as it condensed into a sonic boom. Purely based on the strength of his body and the speed of his sword, it formed a sword energy that was 100 feet long. The sword energy seemed to have drained all of Chen Hao's strength. With a loud bang, Chen Hao fell to one knee and panted heavily. My body has completely adapted to the 1,300 times gravitational field. Chen Hao thought to himself as he felt the circulation of his muscles, veins, and blood. At this moment, Chen Hao had exhausted all of his strength. However, in the terrifying gravitational field, Chen Hao did not feel uncomfortable at all. He did not even need to use his ethereal force to defend himself. This feeling was similar to when he had exhausted all his strength in the outside world. He only needed to lie down and rest to recover. Phew, letting out a long sigh, Chen Hao stood up. With a thought, the energy barrier that surrounded him within a radius of 1,000 feet dissipated on its own. A smile appeared on his handsome and chiseled face. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, naturally carrying a faint evil charm. He looked at his brothers and sisters who were staring at him not far away. Chen Shui, who was hiding nearby, couldn't help but blush, and the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. The gaze she looked at Chen Hao with was clearly provocative, but it was filled with pride that came from the bottom of her heart. It's been a year. Chen Hao thought to himself as he slowly walked towards the crowd. When he had stepped into Songyuan City, he had already determined his goal. That was to rush out of Songyuan City within a year. To most cultivators, the Songyuan City region was already a challenge. However, to him, it wasn't much of a challenge. Although this was the central continent, it was only the first step of training after entering the central continent. It was like a military drill before a great war. What he wanted was to truly charge into the central continent. Under his leadership, Proud Heaven had already become a third-rank guardian squad. Each of them had also become a third-rank guardian. For ordinary guardians and guardian squads, this growth speed was absolutely astonishing. However, the members of Proud Heaven were very clear that if they had wholeheartedly focused on upgrading their guardians and guardian squads, they wouldn't be at the third rank now. This was because they spent most of their time immersed in the cultivation hall. They didn't even have a quarter of the time to do missions. Moreover, every time they received a mission, Chen Hao would accept at least 2 missions that were filled with challenges and impossible to complete in the eyes of others. Strictly speaking, every mission was a time for them to test the effects of their cultivation. Their mission success rate was 100%. In just a year, Proud Heaven had become famous in Songyuan City. They had become the guardian squad that all the younger generation yearned for. Chen Hao had become the most mysterious boss. This was because only Huyen Aobo and the others could really come into contact with Chen Hao. Huyen Aobo, Meng Xiao, First King, and the others had all become idols of the younger generation. Proud Heaven had also recruited many young guardians, and they were all elites. No one dared to look down on Proud Heaven, who was only a third-rank guardian squad. Firstly, Huyen Aobo, Meng Xiao, First King, Jing Tiangang, Bailey Liancheng, and the elites that were recruited later were mostly geniuses from the top families in Songyuan City. Who dared to look down on them? Who dared to offend them? Secondly, although Proud Heaven was only a third-rank Guardian squad, when they truly displayed their battle strength, even 5th and 6th rank Guardians would have to avoid them. Boss. When Huyan Aobo saw that Qin Hao had come out of his cultivation state, they all laughed and called out to him. This made Qin Shui feel slightly strange. From the moment she came here and saw everyone's behavior, they should be very afraid of Qin Hao, this boss. However, at this moment, there was obviously no so-called fear. Is everything arranged? Qin Hao asked casually. It's all arranged. Huyan Aobo said, let's leave. I guarantee there won't be any problems. A few of the main forces are already waiting for you at the Ocean Sky Tavern. That's good. Qin Hao said. At the same time, he glanced at the sisters, lowered his head, and sniffed. Huan, Lele, do I have a smell on me? At this moment, Qin Hao's clothes were soaked in sweat. Basically, every time he finished cultivating in the gravity area, he would be like this. However, the impurities in his body had long been removed. Not to mention that he was dripping with fragrant sweat, at least there wouldn't be any unpleasant smell. No. The sisters hurriedly said. Although they had already agreed to pretend that nothing had happened, when it really came to this, the sisters couldn't act as usual. After all, they knew that Qin Shui was nearby watching. Moreover, it was obvious that Qin Hao's abnormal perception didn't notice Qin Shui's concealment. When Huyan Aobo and the others heard Qin Hao's words, they didn't show any expression on their faces. They all looked like award-winning actors, but in their hearts, they felt that it was very fun. They were waiting for their boss to make a fool of himself. They naturally knew what Qin Hao meant. Under normal circumstances, as long as they weren't in battle, the sisters would be entangled around Qin Hao, one on the left and one on the right, like little birds, holding on to Qin Hao's arm. But now, the sisters were obviously affected by their sister-in-law and didn't dare to be too intimate. That's a little strange. Qin Hao shrugged and said. He didn't continue to investigate and said, let's go. Ocean Sky Tavern. At the door of the most luxurious private room on the top floor, 10 young people with imposing appearances and powerful auras stood respectfully on both sides of the door with a hint of nervousness, as if waiting for the arrival of a big shot. At this moment, one of the young people's communicator vibrated. Boss will be here soon. Hearing the young man's words, everyone immediately straightened their backs and their expressions became more excited and nervous. I can finally see boss, I'm so excited. Damn, me too. I'm even more nervous than my first date with Lil, Red, nervous. Nervous about what? Isn't it just meeting? Boss? I'm not nervous at all. Phew. I'm not nervous. Useless. You haven't seen boss yet, but I think you're all about to piss your pants. Brother Aobo said that not only is boss not scary, he's also a super handsome guy. Many people who are fated to see boss can prove this. As for the rumors, they're all fake. Although we don't have the qualifications to see boss knows our situation like the back of his hand. Moreover, boss personally appointed us to come here. In the future, the entire Songyuan city will be in charge of us. If boss sees you like this, I'm afraid you'll have to scram. The young man who received the message said coldly after seeing everyone's expressions. However, although this guy looked calm, he wasn't much better than everyone else. His slightly trembling hands were the best proof. Brother Qin, we know that too, but we can't control ourselves. Especially when we think of Brother Aobo and Brother Tiangong's situation after they report to boss. Cough, stop talking. Fuck, all of you close your eyes and adjust your breathing. Just treat it as a life and death battle. Damn it. The young man who was called Brother Qin said sternly as his whole body trembled. The people present were all people who were second only to Huyan Albua, Meng Xiao and the other elders of Outyan City. However, they had never seen the mysterious boss before. Because they didn't have the qualifications. However, they knew a lot about boss. Every time they trained in the cultivation gym or reported their work after completing a mission, they would see that among the 12 elders, except for the females, all of them were bruised and battered. It was a horrible sight to behold. What kind of people were the 12 elders? In their eyes, any one of them was an extremely terrifying existence. Not only were they powerful, but they were also capable of doing things. However, after being destroyed by boss, they were all docile and obedient. How terrifying was that mysterious boss? Especially when they were subjected to the elders' cruel corporal punishment, it was simply a fate worse than death. However, from the elders' mouths, the difference between what they were subjected to and what the elders were subjected to was like heaven and hell. Imperceptibly, Qinhao's image had risen to a terrifying level in everyone's hearts. Moreover, no one was dissatisfied with it. Because of the speed at which their strength increased, because of their growth. Greetings. Greetings, boss. More than 10 minutes later, the 10 people saw Qinhao and the others slowly walking over while talking and laughing. They saw the 12 elders crowding around a late-stage primordial soul realm cultivator. Compared to the 12 elders, he did not seem to have any advantage in terms of realm. Was this the legendary existence that even early-stage creation realm experts had to avoid? Moreover, he was handsome and had a hint of a smile on his lips. He looked harmless and was a young man who was younger than them. The 10 people widened their eyes and could not believe what they were seeing. This was the legendary three-headed, six-armed, fierce-looking boss. It was completely unrelated, although the difference was huge, the 10 people did not dare to underestimate him. They looked excited and nervous as they cupped their fists and bowed. Their heads were almost in their pants as they bowed respectfully. Chapter 407. Qinhao stopped in his tracks, glanced at the group, and smiled. Is the weather hot? Huyan Albua and the others were secretly delighted. The 10 people in front of them were all brought up by them, and they were the elites of Proud Heaven's second echelon. But at this moment, the 10 of them seemed to be nervous, their clothes were all soaked. Obviously, under their indoctrination, the high and mighty boss already had an absolute deterrent force. The only pity was that the current boss didn't seem to have the terrifying image of the legends. However, Qinhao was a little surprised in his heart. During this 1 year, it could be said that other than a few extremely risky and unknown missions, he had basically immersed himself in cultivating in the cultivation hall. He only relied on precise calculations, commanding ability, and moving his mouth. He was a completely hands-off boss, and even if he personally went out on a mission, he still maintained a mysterious image. This was all discussed by Huyan Albua and the others. They said that the more mysterious the boss, the higher his prestige. It could be said that other than the 12 elders, Qinhao's other members of Proud Heaven's 2nd Regiment had never even seen Qinhao's face. But at this moment, looking at the 10 elites, Qinhao realized that his boss seemed to have been turned into a super terrifying demon by Huyan Albua and the others. Wasn't it just a meeting? Was there a need to be so nervous? Hearing Qinhao's words, the 10 people were silent, and no one dared to make a sound. They didn't even dare to raise their heads. They had heard from Huyan Albua and the others that if they said anything wrong in front of the boss, they would be ruthlessly trampled. Just thinking about the appearance of Huyan Albua and the others after each meeting with the boss was enough to frighten them. How could they dare to speak carelessly? Although the boss didn't look as terrifying as the legend said, they all knew that one couldn't judge a book by its cover. Let's talk inside, Qinhao said with a wave of his hand. 10 streams of energy silently appeared, and the 10 people suddenly felt an unimaginably pure true yuan. It wasn't strong, but it was incomparably mysterious, and they couldn't resist it. Yes, thank you boss. The luxurious and huge private room made Qin Shui, who was hidden in the air, a little surprised. In this 1 year, she had been staying in the Winter Plum Hall of the Limitless Immortal Palace. Even if she went out, she didn't have the chance to go to the pub. When had he ever seen such a luxurious tavern? And Qin Shui, in the state where Qin Hao was unaware, watched Qin Hao's every move and felt that it was very interesting. Although she didn't know much about Proud Heaven, she could tell that Qin Hao held a very high position in Proud Heaven. She couldn't imagine how Qin Hao did it. In her heart, Qin Hao was a cultivation maniac, a monstrous genius. In front of her, he was often a wretched guy. However, the way everyone looked at Qin Hao, even the laughing Huyan Aobua and the others inadvertently shone with the light of worship. This kind of worship came from the bottom of their hearts, and it was definitely not a simple worship of battle strength. When everyone sat down, Qin Hao began to lecture. Towards the 10 people who were entrusted with important tasks, he hit the nail on the head. Not only did he criticize the inadequacies of the 10 people's cultivation, he also pointed out the weaknesses of the 10 people's characters without hesitation. One by one, the 10 people were hit by the wooden club, their heads were full of bumps, they were scared witless, and they were drenched in cold sweat. It couldn't be helped. Although this legendary boss had never met them, he actually knew their own situation better than they did. Huyan Aobua and the others were all excited, they were very happy. Finally, this group of people experienced the cruelty that only they could experience. And the 10 people couldn't wait to find a hole to hide in. Many of them were originally proud of their achievements, but under Qin Hao's analysis, they became typical idiots. Although they didn't dare to show any dissatisfaction on the surface, but in their hearts, they more or less already had a grudge against this boss. After all, these 10 people were the elites of the elites, any one of them could be thrown out, they were all geniuses. How could they not have arrogance? Qin Hao more or less had to take care of their faces, right? Everyone has dignity, even if you are the boss, you shouldn't trample on it so wantonly, but Qin Hao's next words made the 10 people unable to have any dissatisfaction, they only had fear and respect. After the big stick came the honey. It was the same matter that had just been criticized to the point of being black and blue, leaving everyone unable to defend themselves. However, when it came out of Qin Hao's mouth again, it was completely different. No matter how one listened to it, it felt as if 10 idiots had become 10 wise and powerful existences. The premise was that they were limited in some aspects of their own ability, which made them make the wisest decision under their own circumstances. This made the expressions on the 10 people's faces a lot better. After that, Qin Hao directly targeted the existence of certain aspects that he had defined as the flaws of the 10 people's abilities and gave them specific ways to improve, including cultivation. Not to mention Huyan Aobua and the others, even Qin Shui, who was listening at the side, admired Qin Hao to the extreme. It also made Qin Shui understand why Qin Hao had such a high prestige in Ao Tian. After the 10 of them left, the atmosphere became much more harmonious. Everyone toasted each other and drank to their heart's content. Qin Hao didn't have the slightest arrogance of a boss, and toasted with the first king and the others. But, Qin Shui wasn't happy, it wasn't that she wanted to drink. It was the sisters sitting on both sides of Qin Hao, who drank 2 mouthfuls and fell on the table one after another. And Qin Hao seemed to be used to it, and carried the 2 girls up, arranged a comfortable position, and laid them on his thighs. That position was as intimate as it could be. Fortunately, the pure Qin Shui didn't think of that, only men who were wretched to a certain extent would think of that kind of scene. After all, 2 charming women lying on a man's thighs, and under the table, it seemed, should be, very easy to look at. Huyan Aobua, Bailey Liancheng, Jing Tian Gang, Gao Dezhuang, Zhang Rongrong, Lin Hao, and even the first king, the honest man, were very excited and expectant. Although they couldn't sense Qin Shui's presence, they knew that Qin Shui was definitely watching. After drinking, what would the scene be when Qin Hao carried the 2 girls back to the palace? But, they weren't in a hurry. Before coming, Bai Xiao Mei, this top-quality woman, had already come up with a sinister idea, and avoided the sisters. The sisters would get drunk when drinking, everyone knew that. So, as long as they got their boss half drunk, then something really interesting would happen. Wine, could strengthen the courage of a hero, but it could also cause chaos, right? Therefore, everyone used the excuse that they were leaving Songyuan City tomorrow as an excuse, and each of them drank ferociously. In order to show their endless respect for their boss, they all toasted him. Even the virtuous wife and mother Tan Hui toasted Chen Hao several times, not to mention the others. Of course, everyone was really happy, and really wanted to get drunk. Drinking with a bosom friend, 1,000 cups were not enough. It was the same everywhere. And Chen Hao had been cultivating bitterly for a year, and at this moment, he really wanted to relax. And those present were all brothers and sisters who had received Chen Hao's approval. How could he bear to destroy such an atmosphere? Back when he was on Earth, he was a wine lover. However, he would only drink by himself in extreme loneliness and emptiness. To soothe his lonely soul. Because he didn't have a true friend, not to mention the words brothers and sisters, these 4 exceptionally precious words. So, he drank very happily, very refreshingly. Those who come are not afraid, cup to cup. Chen Hao started drinking. He didn't use his cultivation to resist the effects of the wine, and he no longer cared about his boss's identity. Gradually, he talked more, but he wasn't overly pretentious. Under the effect of the wine, the dizzy feeling made Chen Hao's mood completely relaxed. He had been questioned countless times, but he never talked about the past in front of everyone, but this time, he opened his heart and talked about it. He wasn't drunk. But he didn't keep his mystery. Because he wanted his brothers and sisters to understand him, and more importantly, to understand the brothers and sisters who were bound to meet them in the future, he started from his difficult childhood. The family of 5 depended on each other for survival. They couldn't even afford a full meal. They talked about their father who was crippled because of them, their mother who was struggling to support the family, and their adorable younger brother and younger sister. Perhaps it was the intoxication of the alcohol, or perhaps it was the pain hidden in his heart that he had never spoken out about, but at this moment, this high and mighty boss, who was almost a monster in everyone's hearts, actually had tears shining in his dark eyes. He seemed to have sunk into his memories, without any fancy words. He only used simple words to describe his past experiences. But gradually, everyone forgot about the toast. In the entire room, only Chen Hao's low voice was left. And Qin Shui, who was hidden in the room, felt it more deeply than everyone else. Her nose was sour, and her tears were uncontrollable. Following Chen Hao's voice, there were several times when she couldn't control her emotions, and almost jumped out of her hidden state. Luckily, Chen Hao quickly talked about the Shao family that he had embarked on the path of cultivation. It became less heavy, and also more relaxed. Chen Hao talked about the Yunzhou martial meet, talked about the Royal New Show Hall, talked about the 100 Empire ranking, talked about the Eastern Continent's cultivation world. It was just a few words, and basically did not deliberately emphasize anything. It was just a plain narration, but everyone could clearly feel that it was soul-stirring. Chen Hao said that they were brothers, and in a few years, they would meet up with everyone, and everyone would firmly remember it. And Chen Hao obviously used more words for a few women, or girls, that everyone would remember even more. P.S. I don't know the author. The results are very bad, but the author persevered in writing, very worthy of admiration. The beginning is not good, but the end is still okay. If you are interested, please go and support. Book title, Wind and Cloud Roar. Introduction. The road to immortality is bumpy. See how the youth with the body of wind and cloud looks down on the world, stirring up the wind and clouds, and roaring between heaven and earth. Eastern Wasteland Immortal Sect, Western Plains Beast Demons, Southern Sea Demon Race, Northern Wilderness. The mysterious and terrifying mansion of the 3 realms, the ancient and dazzling immortal cave, everything is in the wind and cloud roar. The wind swirls the sky, the clouds break through the sky, the wind rises and clouds surge, shaking the heavens. A different path of cultivation. Book number 2088350. Chapter 408. Helian Wuzi, Xia Yuyu, and Tan Tai Lian were all labeled as sisters-in-law by Chen Hao. When he mentioned these three people, Chen Hao would proudly say, "One of your sisters-in-law." Everyone hurriedly replied, "Yes, yes." However, they were very excited and wanted Chen Hao to use more words. It would be best if he said it as intimately and affectionately as possible. However, Chen Hao clearly did not satisfy everyone's desire to tease him. "This Leng Yihan, when I was training for the 100 Empire ranking, I felt that something was wrong. You don't know how perverted this guy is." Chen Hao drank a cup of wine in one gulp and shuddered. "Could it be that he's even more perverted than you, boss? Go, go, go. I'm not talking about his battle prowess. I'm talking about his sexual orientation." "What sexual orientation?" "He likes men. You don't know, but after I confirmed this with Li Yifeng and the others, I had goosebumps all over my body." "Fuck. Bastard." Chen Shui, who was hiding in the room, was a little excited when she heard Chen Hao mention Leng Yihan. After all, Leng Yihan was also one of her identities. However, she was mistaken by Chen Hao as a pervert. However, she immediately smiled. This could not be helped. Leng Yihan, whether in terms of appearance or aura, was not her current appearance. It could be said that other than the private areas that could prove that Leng Yihan was a woman, he had the characteristics of a man everywhere. Especially his aura, it was no different from a man's. Under the identity of Leng Yihan, Chen Shui could only pretend to be a man. However, her heart was that of a woman, and it was easy to be misunderstood. Because of this, Leng Yihan always appeared very cold to avoid being discovered by others. However, in front of Chen Hao, she did not have her guard up, so it was normal for her to be misunderstood. If that wasn't the case, Leng Yihan could really be a good brother. What a pity. Chen Hao continued. "Kiki, boss, I also like you." After hearing Chen Hao's words, Huyin Ao Bo's eyes flashed with a trace of excitement. Immediately, his expression became very disgusting and very flattering as he stared at Chen Hao affectionately. Using a voice that was even more disgusting than by Xiao Mei's, he almost rubbed himself against Chen Hao's body. "Get lost." Chen Hao scolded. "Fuck, second brother, can you not be so disgusting?" "Boss, let's continue." Finally, Chen Hao mentioned Chen Shui. Similarly, he directly labeled her as his sister-in-law. Moreover, from the beginning to the end, Chen Hao did not say that his parents were extraordinary. Of course, it was impossible for him to say that he and Chen Shui were siblings. The drinking session lasted for more than 4 hours. After agreeing on the time to meet up the next day, it was finally time to leave. Under the dazed gaze of the crowd, the already dizzy Chen Hao, as usual, carried the sisters in each hand and walked towards the residence. The night sky was clear and the stars were bright. The wide street was already deserted. Chen Hao carried the sisters and his body was like lightning. He quickly headed towards the palace where the guardians lived. His narrowed eyes were a little slack. It was obvious that he drank very well. Chen Shui, who was following behind Chen Hao, was a little conflicted at this moment. The reason why she hid was to give Chen Hao a surprise, but in reality, she had the mentality of a surprise check. However, she did not expect that she would hide until now. Chen Shui felt that she was riding a tiger and could not get off. What if she really caught them in bed? If Chen Hao was embarrassed, she would not be any better. Moreover, she would feel even more uncomfortable. Moreover, Chen Shui's sharp senses could sense that although the sisters' relationship with Chen Hao was not shallow, it had not reached a certain depth. Otherwise, when the sisters first saw her, there was no need for them to be so embarrassed and explain their relationship with Chen Hao. But now, the sisters were drunk and Chen Hao was drunk. It was too easy for something to happen, forget it. At this point, I naturally have to understand. Chen Shui hesitated for a moment and finally did not expose herself as she thought to herself. When she arrived at the Guardian Palace complex, Chen Shui deliberately delayed for a moment. There was no choice. The Guardian Palace complex was not like the Sea Sky Tavern. There was a powerful barrier and surveillance. If she did not register, even if she was in a concealed state, she could not sneak in. I want a room. After Qin Hao entered, Chen Shui quickly came out of her concealed state and came to the registration office. She handed over her guardian token and said, after passing the assessment of Limitless Immortal Palace's Cold Plum Hall, Chen Shui's guardian level directly reached level 5. Limitless Immortal Palace, as the top sect in the Limitless continent, was one of the owners of the League of Guardians. It had privileges that ordinary cultivators did not have. Ah! After the attendant saw Chen Shui's token, he immediately revealed a look of surprise and hurriedly said, "Okay, Mississippi. You are a direct disciple of Limitless Immortal Palace. You can stay in the best palace for free. No need. Just next to the 3 palaces just now. Qin Hao is my Dao companion," Chen Shui said with a slightly red face. "Ow. Okay." The attendant hurriedly said. Chen Shui took the room token and disappeared in front of the attendant. Looking at Chen Shui's departing figure, the attendant's face revealed a strange expression and muttered, "The disciples of Limitless Immortal Palace are amazing. I can't feel any aura. If I didn't take out the token, I'm afraid anyone would think that I'm an ordinary person from the secular world. No wonder Ao Tian is so strong. It seems that this Qin Hao also has the background of Limitless Immortal Palace. This seems to be quite fun." When Qin Hao and the other 2 passed through the door, the attendant here could detect their identity and the room number information here. Who in Song Yuan City didn't know about Qin Hao's fame now? When Qin Hao opened the palace door, an imperceptible breeze floated into his palace first. Qin Hao still didn't feel anything. He released energy in a daze and closed the palace door. Then, he carried the sisters and walked to their room. "Sister, do you think she followed us? No matter how well hidden the Guardian Palace is, you can't enter and exit at will. She shouldn't. Lele, what are you going to do?" "Sister, if you don't take the initiative, we won't have any hope." "I don't care. You have to agree whether you agree or not. Xiao Mei is right. Tonight, let's do God Grandfather." "You? What are you talking about?" "If you're shy, I'll do it myself." "Humph. Even if we don't do that, we still have to go one step further. Anyway, we can't continue like this. After being taken advantage of, he still thinks that we don't know anything and don't have to take any responsibility. How can we do that? We'll suffer too much loss." When Qin Hao carried the 2 girls into the room, the sisters who were pretending to be drunk communicated telepathically. Leng Ning Li's idea was very simple. She didn't have to really do Qin Hao. It was fine to talk about it, but if she really did it, how could she do it? Her idea was to not let Qin Hao take advantage of them every time and think that they didn't know anything. How could Qin Hao, who was still in the dark, know that he was about to undergo the most severe test? He was in a daze, and the alcohol was just right. It was the time when his body and mind were in a good mood. Hugging the 2 beautiful sisters, smelling the faint tempting virgin fragrance, and feeling the soft and exquisite bodies, he was already addicted to holding them while they were on the road. As the saying goes, a hero's courage is boosted by wine. As the saying goes, when one is full and warm, one will think, "Oh fuck." Therefore, it seemed that this brother was destined to have a tragic night. Phew. Qin Hao let out a long sigh. He bent down and gently placed the sisters on the bed. Leng Ning Huan was like a docile kitten. Her body was soft and fluffy. She directly fell off Qin Hao's body and rolled onto the bed. She curled up her body and didn't move at all. She didn't seem to have any abnormalities at all. However, at this moment, Leng Ning Huan was fully focused on controlling her vital signs. She was afraid that she would reveal any flaws because of her nervousness. She was too timid to do that to her sister, but that didn't mean that she didn't want to do it. Therefore, even if she didn't move, she couldn't ruin her sister's decision. What made Chen Hao's eyes widen was that right after Leng Ninghuan was put down, Leng Ningle, still in a daze, slid down from Chen Hao's shoulders and wrapped her arms around Chen Hao's waist. At the same time, she spread her legs and wrapped them around Chen Hao. She was like a sleeping baby who didn't want to change her original position. Her actions were very natural. Chen Hao had no choice but to lower himself down until Leng Ning Li's body was completely on the bed. Only then did he use some strength to push Leng Ning Li's arms away from him, then he pushed her legs apart. However, Chen Hao's gentle movements were too perverted. It was fine when he separated his arms, but when he separated her legs, this fellow's hands were like An Lushan's claws. They roamed around Leng Ning Li's jade-like legs for a full 10 seconds. Chen Shue's face was flushed red, and she looked at him with disdain and anger. What made Chen Shue even angrier was that it was one thing to take advantage of the situation, but after Chen Hao put down the two girls, he obviously had no intention of leaving. His eyes, which were already slightly blurred due to the effect of alcohol, actually emitted a perverted gaze. A wretched look also appeared on his handsome face, and his two claws even roamed around the two girls' bodies. Interest. I sent you back to collect some interest. You won't know anyway, hee, Chen Hao muttered under his breath. He wasn't worried that the two girls would wake up. This was something that had been tested many times. As long as it wasn't too intense, there wouldn't be any problems. Just that, Chen Hao, who was enjoying himself, suddenly retracted his claws and widened his eyes. Leng Ninglu, who was in a daze, groaned and flipped over, sitting down. Chen Hao was so shocked that he almost jumped up. Fortunately, Leng Ning Li's eyes were still closed. However, Chen Hao wasn't the only one who widened his eyes. Even Chen Shue, who was hiding in the room, widened her eyes. Leng Ninglu actually took off her clothes in a daze. Chapter 409. Her long skirt fluttered, revealing her naked body. Her snow-white neck and her pink chest were gradually revealed. Leng Ninglu, who seemed to be in a daze, was actually extremely nervous. She was a pure and innocent virgin. Although cultivators were more open-minded than ordinary people, there was still a limit to it. Pushing down on someone was something that Bai Xiaomei said was easy, but when she actually mustered up the courage to do it, Leng Ninglu was so embarrassed that she wanted to crawl into a hole to hide her face. She was praying that Chen Hao would lose control of himself soon. As long as Chen Hao took the initiative to pounce on her, she would immediately wake up and take the bamboo pole ruthlessly. She would be responsible for it. Don't talk about pushing down on someone, she wasn't even prepared to be pushed down on. She didn't even dare to think about it. When the first two buttons were undone, Chen Hao's eyes were wide open. His heart was beating twice as fast. Could it be that he was going to watch a striptease for free? Hiss. But just as Chen Hao was about to explode with excitement, a strange fluctuation of energy abruptly appeared. It was extremely weak, so weak that the two beautiful sisters couldn't sense it at all. Yet, Chen Hao's hair stood on end, and he almost screamed out in shock. He stared dumbfoundedly at the figure standing between him and Leng Ninglu like a mother hen protecting her chicks. Wearing a blue dress, her face was full of anger. Get out! Chen Shue transmitted her voice and covered Chen Hao's eyes. A ray of energy directly bound Chen Hao and he disappeared from the sisters' room without a sound. The two beautiful sisters were completely unaware of this sudden turn of events. Leng Ninglu, who had undone two buttons, didn't move at all. Could it be that the heat was still not enough? But if she continued, she would be too embarrassed. But since they had already reached this step, if she didn't continue and the teasing was successful, then when Chen Shue met up with her, she and Chen Shue would probably not have another chance. For sister's happiness, I'll do it. Leng Ninglu gathered her courage and undid the third button. Her pink chest was completely exposed. Her snow-white cleavage was extremely seductive. But it was still not enough. Leng Ninglu didn't dare to think for too long. When the fourth button was undone, her white and flat stomach was exposed. However, there was still no reaction. At this point, Leng Ninglu had completely lost her confidence. Unable to hold it in any longer, she finally sent out a strand of her divine sense. If Qin Hao was watching, she would have screamed out loud and forced her way out of the situation. Just to make do. However, when Leng Ningli's spiritual sense spread out, she abruptly opened her eyes. Where was Qin Hao? Sister. Leng Ninglu was on the verge of tears. It wasn't easy for her to muster up the courage to do something like this. How could she endure this? You big pervert, big pervert. Ugh. After dragging Qin Hao directly to the cultivation room and closing the door, Qin Shui directly flipped out at Qin Hao, who had a stunned and excited expression but did not feel guilty. However, before she could finish her sentence, she was pulled into Qin Hao's embrace. Her vision turned black and her mouth was sealed. Qin Hao's excited voice sounded in her ears. Xiao Shui, you're seriously ill. You need to be treated. How dare you follow me? Let go of me, you damn pervert. Ugh, let go. How can that be? You have to explain to me as you treat me. You're seriously violating my right to privacy. Qin Hao continued to speak through voice transmission as he forcefully attacked Qin Shui's tightly shut lips. Qin Shui's sudden appearance in his heart was a mixture of shock, joy, depression, and confusion. He felt as if he had been caught red-handed. This was really too embarrassing. Needless to say, this girl had seen him taking advantage of her. No matter how thick Qin Hao's skin was, he couldn't take it. At this moment, Qin Hao's brain spun rapidly as he calculated the time of Qin Shui's arrival. Very quickly, he found the answer. No wonder when he was done with his cultivation, the sisters didn't hang onto his arm as usual. But, how could those guys not know? Why didn't they give him any hints? Various deductions quickly appeared in Qin Hao's mind. During this period of time, many passionate and unrestrained girls wanted to seduce him, but they were all stopped by Huyan Aobo and the rest. Then what was the situation with Qin Shui's appearance this time? Very quickly, Qin Hao deduced all sorts of possibilities. Although he didn't guess the real situation after Qin Shui's appearance, it was almost the same. Furthermore, this deduction directly made Qin Hao tremble. The most important part was that Leng Ninglu took the initiative to take off her clothes. Shame, really shame. As the saying goes, if you don't want others to know, don't do it in the first place. It was simply too reasonable. He had really embarrassed himself. Not only Qin Shui, but the sisters were also no exception. Furthermore, as for the sisters, Qin Hao could already confirm that he had already lost all his face. Hence, at this moment, Qin Hao could only hide his face in his pocket and use sophistry and wild attacks to disrupt Qin Shui's questioning. You hooligan, if I don't stop you, you're still going to look right? Not only do you want to look, you want to do something right? Qin Shui gave up struggling, but clenched her teeth tightly. No matter how Qin Hao pried, she refused to open her mouth. At the same time, he transmitted his voice. Obviously, this time, Qin Shui really flipped out. Cough cough, how could that be? I just couldn't help but collect some interest. You're just a pervert. In just a year, you've already done 2, or even 3, everywhere you go. Qin Hao was speechless. He originally thought that such a forceful attack would cause Qin Shui to be confused and calm down first. Later on, it would be easier to handle. But Qin Shui's appearance was obviously really angry. How could Qin Hao explain? He could only temporarily let go of Qin Shui. Scratching his head awkwardly. It was impossible for him to apologize. That was his personality. Furthermore, Qin Shui's sentence of, everywhere you go, indeed made Qin Hao unable to refute. How to refute? Say that his luck with women was too strong, and beauties all took the initiative to throw themselves at him? That was also because he himself did not have a firm stance. This reason simply did not hold water. Humph. Qin Shui turned her face away and did not even look at Qin Hao. Her long hair that was messed up by Chen Hao scattered on her beautiful face. Lightly biting her lips, she was clearly waiting for Chen Hao to explain. Little Shui, not seeing you for a year, you've become even more beautiful. Chen Hao said very indifferently. Reaching out his hand, he wanted to help Chen Shui tidy up her hair, but it was slapped away by Chen Shui. Little Shui, your realm rises really quickly. I'm afraid that I'm not your match now. Why don't I call you elder sister Shui for the time being? Humph. Little Shui, no, elder sister Shui, your carving skills have reached such a high level. Even with my god's eye, I can't sense any aura at all. That's amazing, elder sister Shui, you look so beautiful even when you're angry. Chen Hao said again as he walked in front of Chen Shui. Chen Shui immediately turned around and looked away again. However, this elder sister Shui that she had never heard before made Chen Shui's emotions fluctuate a little. Of course, she did not intend to let this matter go just like that. Little Shui, for the past year, I've been thinking about you all the time. You don't know how scared I was when you suddenly left. Cough cough, I've searched the entire 100,000 mountains. I didn't even let go of an ant's nest or a mouse's nest. For an entire month, I couldn't sense any aura at all. I'm in despair. I don't want to live anymore. I've lost my dearest little Shui. Elder sister Shui, what's the point of me living? I might as well just die. Tui. Aren't you still alive and well? Chen Shui finally felt disgusted by Chen Hao and could not help but say. That's because, just when I decided to follow you, a thought suddenly flashed through my mind, and I figured it out. What did you figure out? Don't you have the will of a celestial venerable left behind by our mother? Who's your mother? So what if it's the will of a celestial venerable? The will of a celestial venerable left behind by our mother is useless against a blessed realm expert even if it's a miniature grotto heaven. However, this is something our mother created, isn't it? Once the will of a celestial venerable is activated, how can our mother not care? Even if you're dead, I've been searching for you for a month. Our mother should have found me a long time ago. However, our mother didn't come. That means you're definitely not dead. When I thought about this, I finally had the courage to breathe. I don't want to die anymore. I'm afraid you'll be sad if I die and you're still alive. I won't be sad. However, if you're not dead, why did you leave without saying goodbye? I racked my brains and killed countless brain cells. Finally, I thought of a reason. What's the reason? Chen Shui could not help but ask. My dearest little Shui, how can you bear to see me in pain? You must have been forced to say goodbye to me. Who would be able to force you? I thought of the magical jade slip you used to sense me. I think our mother must have left something even more magical on you to ensure your safety. When we entered the origin space of the 9th Frost Pond, all information from the outside world was blocked. How could our mother not notice the abnormality? So what? That is to say, when we were in the 9th Frost Pond, our mother should have already come to find us. However, she definitely couldn't find us. But, after we walked out of the 9 Nether Frost Pond, our mother must have found us very quickly. Then, because of that, the reason why I often treated you, our mother probably couldn't take it anymore. And, she knew that I had triggered the heavenly punishment. So, she forcefully took you away as my punishment. Humph. Chen Shui snorted. However, she was extremely surprised by Chen Hao's speculation. It was exactly the same as the truth. After that, when I went to Heavenly Mist City, I almost died. You deserve to die. Chen Shui said. When I was 30,000 miles away from Heavenly Mist City, I encountered a level 6 beast tide. Level 6? Chen Shui was shocked. Chen Hao's statement in the tavern stopped when he stepped out of the Eastern Continent's cultivation world with her. In reality, it was mainly to introduce his brothers and sisters to everyone. He didn't mention what happened after that. P.S. I recommend a brother's new book Great Emperor System. This is the story of a modern person who transmigrated, got rid of the system he carried with him and obtained the core rights of the system. After getting rid of the system, he became the system himself. He controlled heaven-defying resources and killed millions of geniuses. The old author's new avatar is definitely not the kind of person who eunuchs. His character is very good. He has several completed works and they are all not bad. He changed his avatar for a special reason. Friends who are interested in sex, please support him. Many thanks. Come to vote for me. Chapter 410. That's right. I fought in the beast tide for 3 days and 3 nights. Time and time again, I felt like I was about to die. But every time I was about to die, in a daze, I saw my dearest, dearest, dearest little Snow crying. At that time, I told myself that I definitely couldn't die. I absolutely cannot die. How can I let my little Shue be depressed, sad, crying, and lonely for the rest of her life? So, I clenched my teeth and persevered. But, there is a limit to a person's strength. After 3 days and 3 nights, I still couldn't go on. Just as I was about to be dismembered by the numerous demon beasts. Chen Hao paused slightly and looked at Qin Shui. And then, the beautiful sisters of the Leng family appeared. Chen Hao said, "It was the 2 of them who saved my life." Qin Shui frowned slightly. They are of the demonic Tao. According to the rules of the demonic Tao, I have to become their servant. But they only signed an equal contract with me for 1 year, and asked me to bring them to the central continent. Qin Shui curled her lips. Of course she knew that Chen Hao was beating around the bush in order to explain his relationship with the beautiful sisters. After breaking the deadlock, the atmosphere gradually became harmonious. Under Chen Hao's questioning, Qin Shui slowly talked about her experiences in the past year. Under Chen Hao's initiative, they naturally snuggled together. The joy and excitement of meeting after a long separation began to emerge. Unknowingly, they had become tightly hugging each other. Their lips were connected, and they were immersed in a silent, confused, and intoxicating exchange. Separated by a blue dress, Chen Hao lightly caressed Qin Shui's smooth and graceful delicate body, as if he was touching his most precious treasure. The feeling brought about by the touch was undoubtedly wonderful, but what was truly intoxicating was the joy that came from the soul. In the passionate long kiss, Chen Hao's hand finally could not help but stretch into the dress, touching the smooth and hot body. Just when Chen Hao wanted to take the next step, the confused Qin Shui suddenly pressed down on Chen Hao's hand. She opened her beautiful eyes and stared at Chen Hao. She shook her head and said with a trace of apology, "Can you wait a little longer?" "Right now. I really can't. I have a restriction left behind by my mother. She will know. Don't blame her." Qin Shui avoided Chen Hao's gaze and said in a voice like a mosquito, "I'm sorry." Chen Hao, who was burning with desire, when he heard Qin Shui's words, it was like a bucket of cold water poured to his head. What the fuck is this? Good things to eat tofu when you're flustered? But seeing Qin Shui's guilty look, what else could Chen Hao say? It's okay, I already knew it would be like this. Chen Hao seemed to be reluctant to part with his hand from Qin Shui's dress and suddenly quickly stretched out to a certain place. Ah! Qin Shui suddenly screamed. She originally thought that Chen Hao had already given up. Who would have thought that Chen Hao would take the next step? Hee hee. Little Shui, you also want to. When Qin Shui suddenly closed her legs and wanted to push away Chen Hao's hand as fast as lightning, Chen Hao was already like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. Even though they were separated by small underwear, there was a trace of slippery crystal on his fingers as he stared at Qin Shui's red little face and said. Qin Shui was extremely embarrassed. Just when she was about to flip out at the shameless Chen Hao covered Qin Shui's mouth and carried her out of the training room. What are you doing? Qin Shui said telepathically. Sleeping. I want to hug you and have a good sleep. I don't want to do anything. Don't be afraid. I promise I won't mess around. Don't worry. No, what if you can't resist? How can that be? Even if you can't resist, I can also resist. You don't have to worry about my self-control. Chen Hao said. Gently putting Chen Shui on the soft big bed, Chen Hao directly pulled up the exaggerated quilt and covered the two of them, even covering their heads. The reason why he did this was of course to cover up his embarrassment. Although it was a method to deceive oneself, it had to be said that in this situation, it would give people a sense of security in their hearts. Of course, this sense of security was not only for Chen Hao to give to Chen Shui, but also for himself. It had to be said that although he had already secretly eaten the forbidden fruit with Tan Tai Lian because of the phoenix's nirvana and was no longer a virgin, the situation at that time was completely forced. Moreover, ever since that time, he had never tasted the matters between a man and a woman. As for the various experiences in his previous life, it was completely different from the current situation. Because, that was just a venting without emotions. Other than the physical venting, there was no psychological burden at all. It couldn't be compared, indeed, lying on the soft and comfortable bed, when the quilt covered the two of them and turned into a dark and narrow space, Chen Shui's slightly trembling delicate body stabilized in a moment. An indescribable sweetness and warmth gushed out from her heart, and she was no longer so shy. Xiao Shui, it's not comfortable to sleep with clothes on. Why don't we take off our outerwear? Chen Hao hugged Chen Shui lightly and whispered in her ear. This fellow obviously knew what he was doing, but even though he knew it was playing with fire, he still did it. Because, he really couldn't help it. A year ago, it was ringing day and night. Their intimate intimacy had already caused Chen Shui to become a knot in his heart that triggered God's punishment. Later on, because of Chen Shui's departure, this knot in his heart faded, and now, after a year of reunion, in Chen Hao's eyes, Chen Shui was even more beautiful than before. Even if he couldn't really eat her, he still wanted to have a taste and stop. No. It's fine like this. Quickly sleep, we're leaving tomorrow. Chen Shui said softly. Be good, don't be afraid. Who sleeps with outerwear on? I promise I won't move, I'll just hug you. I'll help you take it off. Chen Hao advanced step by step. I'll do it myself. Although something like sleeping was already a very extravagant thing for cultivators, but the habit that had been formed over many years was still there. Indeed, no one would feel comfortable sleeping with outerwear on. Hearing Chen Hao's harmless words, Chen Shui's psychological defenses gradually lowered. Moreover, how could she not want to? She was just afraid that she and Chen Hao wouldn't be able to control themselves. A series of rustling sounds came from under the big blanket. When Chen Shui moved, Chen Hao of course used the fastest speed to take off his robe. As a man, he naturally took off his robe, leaving only his underwear. And Chen Shui was left with long pants, small underwear, short inner shirt, and the chest wrap under the inner shirt. Chen Hao stretched out his arm and pulled Chen Shui into his embrace. Directly touching Chen Hao's skin, Chen Shui's heart thumped, and her heartbeat and breathing couldn't help but quicken. Luckily, Chen Hao was very obedient and only hugged her without moving. But, little Shui, it's said that if you wrap your chest for a long time, it will affect your growth. Don't tell me you've always wrapped it when you sleep. I promise I won't touch you there. Otherwise, if it changes shape, I won't like it. I still want to admire it on our wedding night. Take it off. What nonsense are you talking about? Chen Shui was extremely embarrassed. Naturally, she would take it off when she was sleeping, but how could she take it off now? However, before she could reject, a wave of energy directly acted on her chest. Suddenly, she felt it loosen and the chest wrap disappeared, scaring Chen Shui so much that she screamed out loud. Good girl, don't be afraid, I promise I won't move. As Chen Hao spoke, he directly hugged Chen Shui tightly in his arms. In an instant, separated by a layer of inner shirt, Chen Shui's towering and bouncy twin peaks were pressed against Chen Hao's chest. Feels good. Chen Hao secretly felt good. How sensitive were the cells in his body? He didn't even need to deliberately sense it, and he could feel that soft charm. Chen Shui was embarrassed, angry and nervous. Luckily, Chen Hao just hugged her and didn't move, otherwise, no matter what, they couldn't continue. But even so, she felt that her heart was about to jump to her throat, and her whole body was boiling. After more than 10 minutes, Chen Shui finally stabilized her emotions. She had to admit that this feeling was very good. They could feel each other's heartbeat and breathing, infinitely allowing their hearts to merge. Xiao Shui, I'm still a little uncomfortable, but just as Chen Shui was intoxicated in this warm and comfortable scene, Chen Hao's voice rang in her ears again. Where are you uncomfortable? This layer of cloth is too thick, it makes me feel very far away from you, very uncomfortable, you. Chen Shui was abnormally embarrassed. After saying, you for a long time, she angrily said, what do you want? We really can't. Chen Shui was really scared, as if she felt that she was slowly falling into Chen Hao's evil clutches. Good girl, don't be afraid, I promise I won't move, you just need to hug. Chen Hao still said this sentence, like a magic spell comforting Chen Shui. Getting closer, Chen Shui screamed again, her short inner shirt and long pants directly disappeared. However, before she could make a sound, Chen Hao's big mouth had already blocked her, and at the same time, he turned over and pressed the completely naked Chen Shui under his body. Boom! The intense stimulation of being pressed together almost completely naked made Chen Shui's mind directly explode, and in an instant, all her thoughts disappeared. She forgot to struggle, and even if she struggled, she didn't have the strength to struggle. The only thought left in her mind was, it's over. Chen Hao had suppressed his desire for a long time, and at this moment, he was similarly attacked by endless, unimaginable comfort and pleasure. The feeling brought by the real skin contact was not something that a layer of clothes could compare to. Chen Hao felt that his blood was burning, the hot and smooth, graceful and exquisite body under his body was really too comfortable, too tempting. Chen Hao could no longer control his big hands, and with a trace of trembling, they roamed around Chen Shui's smooth and slender jade legs, her plump and alluring butt, and her small waist that could be held with one hand. Chen Shui felt that she was about to suffocate. Following the movements of Chen Hao's big hands, it made her body feel as if it had been electrocuted, trembling violently, and her small face was flushed red. When Chen Hao moved away from Chen Shui's delicate lips and kissed her neck and other sensitive areas, Chen Shui let out an sound, only this time it was not a scream, but a cry that would make any man go crazy. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.